News.
The Prime Minister warns of even darker days ahead amid reports of a renewed Russian assault on Kyiv.
Good morning. It is 6 o'clock on Monday, the 7th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
We're with you. We're live right across the whole world. We're on radio, we're on television, we are online. And here is what is leading the news this morning.
The Prime Minister will meet with his Canadian and Dutch counterparts today to try and keep up international pressure on Russia over its continued invasion of Ukraine.
Also today, the economic crime bill will be sped through Parliament, but opponents say it's too little too late to clamp down on oligarch dirty money.
It comes after last night's powerful address by the Ukrainian President Zelensky, in which he called on the West to do more and promised we will punish everyone who had committed atrocities in this war on our land.
You can join in with your views on all of this. GBviews at gbnews.uk. We'd love to hear from you. You can tweet at GBnews. Well, Britain has announced that it's offering an additional £74 million funding to support the Ukrainian government.
Today, the Prime Minister will meet with his counterparts from Canada and the Netherlands to discuss the ongoing situation in Ukraine.
And in a powerful address overnight, the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky, promised to punish everyone committing atrocities on his land after at least 3 people were killed trying to flee the town of Irpin.
Well, UK defence officials say Russian forces have made minimal gains over the past 48 hours, but Ukrainian officials are now warning Russia is preparing to launch an all-out assault on Kyiv.
Let's get the take from Brigadier Paul Gibson on this one. He's a former Director of Counter-Terrorism and UK operations in Iraq. So would we be right in assuming, and it's very hard to verify anything really, that the Russian advance has stalled?
I think the Russians have not achieved the objectives they've probably set themselves in those early days. They've been stalled by a heroic defence by the Ukrainian forces, which we've heard a lot about. But I think that defence has been clever. They've used anti-tank weapons in small groups, attacking rear echelons.
So when you say in small groups, that means they're hard for Russians to target.
Indeed. So where the Russian advantage was in cyber, where they could interfere with people's command and control systems, if you're working in small groups independently, it's much harder to do so. They've blown up bridges. They didn't illuminate their air defence systems early on, so they were hidden, and now they're popping up, and they've been widely dispersed. So the Russians can't control airspace. They're having to move into night operations using helicopters mainly at night because they're being shot down. So all of this is stalling the Russian advance. They've also taken a lot of casualties. I thought it was interesting yesterday, the Chief of Defence Staff comparing the Russian losses to being more in a week than the British Army lost in 20 years in Afghanistan.
Fantastic.
Now, so how long can you sustain that level of casualties? And I think the other thing the Russians are finding is that having taken a town, taken a village, then securing it, preventing further attacks, and dealing with the local population, who they expected to be friendly towards them, who are being the very opposite of that, is proving very difficult as well.
So my question, I suppose, in all of this is, was Putin incredibly naive, thinking he could topple a country of 45 million people in a week? Or have the Ukrainians surprised expectations? And you referenced Admiral Sir Tony Radakin. He's obviously our top military man in this country, and he's been talking about, as you say, how troops have been decimated from the Russian side in the last week.
Yes. I think probably that Putin has overestimated the capability of the Russian armed forces and underestimated the Ukrainian defence. I mean, no military plan survives contact with the enemy, and this is very clear in this case. And some of their elite units are taking significant hits. And you see this great convoy that everybody keeps talking about. It is largely a logistic convoy going down a single road, expecting to be waved on as it goes into the capital. That has not happened. It's now being picked off, it's bogged down. We've got reports of officers leaving the convoy because it's just being attacked all the time. It's just too dangerous.
Yeah. Let me put something else to you, Brigadier. We talk about the Russian atrocities, we talk about Putin and his, just insufferable sort of attacks here. But maybe he's holding back. Maybe he actually can't do everything that he wants. He's got the might, he's got the firepower, and maybe international, although how horrific it is, maybe the whole international audience is actually preventing him from doing what he wants to do.
Well, I think, again, you would imagine he's been very surprised by the unity of the response from the developed world and elsewhere. So that will have surprised him, and I'm not sure it will have altered his determination. I think what he will continue to do is grind on. I mean, I'm very sad to say, sitting here, but this could easily drag into weeks and months because they still, despite the limitations, despite the heroic defence, it is a lot of mass there. There are a lot of tanks and artillery and fast aircraft.
But why doesn't he just use air power?
Well, I think, again, it's slightly to do with the Ukrainian defence. He would have hoped by now that his fast air could operate without any concerns. That is not the case. So the aircraft are having to take a lot of defensive measures and are less able to provide that close air support to the ground troops.
I just want to ask you about the FSB. Obviously, this is the Special Forces under Putin, and there were reports that they were tipping off President Zelensky about possible decapitation moves. That is indicative, isn't it, of low morale, if that's happening within the Special Forces in Russia. And could that be the undoing of Putin? I mean,
that's... obviously, that I haven't seen the evidence for that, but I have seen, like you have, those reports. I mean, I think, yes, that would be extraordinary. If an elite group, an intelligence agency with those sort of capabilities is briefing the enemy, as is in this case, that is very dangerous area for Putin, very dangerous indeed. And
what about the deal the Americans have been doing with the Poles overnight to try and provide backup aircraft so that the Polish planes can go into Ukraine? How much of a difference will that make? I mean, lots of experts saying World War III has already started, and I know Putin said that if any air support comes in from other countries, they're at war with him.
Well, it does seem that we're on a slightly slippery slope here, that we rule out a no-fly zone. We rule out providing directly aircraft from the US to the Ukrainians. But now we're doing some sort of deal with the Poles to allow American aircraft to go to Poland and then their aircraft to go into Ukraine. So I think this is really interesting territory because I don't accept that we're at third world war, and I know that my colleagues are working desperately hard to avoid that. That is why they've taken the no-fly zone off. But it is a slip, and if those pilots, what are they, Polish pilots, NATO pilots, possibly? I mean, this idea that you can take a fast jet and just hand the keys over.
There you are, there are the keys.
Exactly.
You go.
But that's the problem with supplying all of this lethal aid, isn't it? That who actually knows how to operate any of it, whether it's planes or tanks or whatever?
You can differentiate. I mean, you can train an individual on an anti-tank weapon system if he's already a trained soldier, in a matter of a couple of days. You can't do that with a fast jet. So I think there's some loose thinking around some of these issues, actually. But one understands the sentiment. People are desperate to help the Ukrainians in any way they can.
You are a commander, former commander of armoured groups. We see all these pictures of armoured cars, tanks here from the Russians in Ukraine. Do you get any sort of sense? But I never see pictures of, 5 or 6 tanks together. You see individual tanks or whatever. When you watch and scratch your head looking at all this stuff, I mean, can you see a joined-up plan here, or...?
Well, I mean, I'm completely with you. I mean, of course, we're relying on a certain amount of footage, so we're not really seeing the battle picture. But you're right. In order to be successful, you bring mass to bear at a particular point. And it's like playing an orchestra. You get the artillery, you get the mortars, you have the tanks manoeuvring, then you have the armoured infantry coming up behind. All that has to be orchestrated and delivered so that you, at the moment that you want to deliver that kinetic energy, you've got it all working together. I don't see evidence of that.
One of my fascinations is I'm a great student of World War II, and you can have all this hardware, but if you don't have, we talk about the logistics in this convoy that there is, and people seem to think they're not important, but I mean, if you get rid of those, it's very important because everything else breaks down. But keeping armoured hardware on the road, maintaining it, it can be quite temperamental. It needs fuel for a start.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm old enough to know some of the early days of sort of chieftain tanks, and they just lost their tracks every 5 minutes. It's a constant battle just to keep them on the road, keep them fueled up, keep them with ammunition, keep them going in the right direction. That is a huge logistic challenge, and you have to have that logistic element right behind your armoured units. And that's, at the moment, that's not happening for them. It's bogged down elsewhere.
I suppose I have to ask you a question about the civilians, because most of the papers this morning carry pictures of either Ukrainian forces helping buggies over, into safe zones, or children, women, whoever it might be. Terrible scenes over the weekend. This attempt to create a humanitarian corridor has been unsuccessful so far. The big fear, I suppose, is that what we're seeing is the more frustrated President Putin gets with his progress in Ukraine, is he's doing a bit more of a sort of Chechnya playbook, what he did on Grozny, where civilians pay the awful toll, huge numbers killed there.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should be clear. If you're fighting in an urban area, civilians are going to get caught up in this. I mean, if the sniper attacks you from a block of flats, you're going to hit that.
Ceasefire.
So no, but there is that really difficult thing. So I'm afraid civilians are, if they're in the streets, in those residential blocks, are going to get caught up in this. So that's the really sad reality of that. I think the ceasefire is interesting insofar as it sort of suggests that the Russians are in complete control of what's going on in terms of saying to the whole of their brigade, division, there's going to be a ceasefire, it's going to come in at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, this is the humanitarian corridor. They don't seem to be able to deliver that.
Or they don't care.
Or they don't care. And I think, the jury's probably out of that, and I know they're going to have another go today. But that is essential. And in terms of, I'm here to talk about military stuff. But actually, it's the diplomatic channels have got to be open now. They've got to put pressure on Putin to say, whatever you're trying to achieve here, you've got to open these humanitarian corridors. You've got to help people get to safety.
Well, look, listen, somebody who we hope is in safety, and do stay with us, and it'd be interesting to get your take here, is a Ukraine resident, Maria Adiva. And we spoke to her last week. Maria, you're in, well, I don't know really where you are. You were in Kharkiv the last time we spoke to you, but you have been on the move, haven't you?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me. I went to Dnipro a couple of days ago because my house was without electricity for 2 days, and then I wasn't sure when it will come back. So I went to Dnipro and spent a couple of nights there, and now I'm back to Kharkiv. And yesterday I had a chance to go around the city and speak to Kharkiv territorial defense units, see how it goes here, and I see that they are doing a great job in combating Putin's troops here, and they now started counter-offensive yesterday, so trying to push the Russian forces back from the city. But Putin sees that, and he understands that it's not going according to his plan, and now he is terrorizing the city, because during this night and in the evening there were again bombardments in Kharkiv in residential areas, and I have heard many explosions.
Well, Maria,
here and there.
We're looking at amazing pictures here, and I just want to get the Brigadier's analysis as to what on earth we are looking at. We're looking at big green army vehicles. Can you recognise what those sort of vehicles would be?
I mean, that looked like a logistic vehicle moving very slowly through the centre of the city there. But I mean, that would suggest to you that they are very confident about the security arrangements just at that moment. I mean, if they can move it that slowly, it's not a main battle tank, clearly, nor indeed is it armoured infantry. So, look, those are big logistic vehicles coming through.
With that trademark Z painted on the side there, which is apparently popping up all over Russia, I want to bring Maria in again at this point. Maria, you were talking about how you've been hearing lots of explosions and residential areas are being targeted. Are you spending your nights in the shelters still?
Well, the citizens in Kharkiv do spend nights in shelters. I sleep in the corridor because I have thick walls in my house, and I hope that if the airstrike happens, that will somehow protect me, because I now need to have internet connection, because I see my mission at the moment to give as much information to the world as possible, because Putin and his media deny their crimes here. They again spread disinformation, saying that they do not bombard residential areas, and that is this some kind of military operation here. So I want to make as much as possible about revealing their crimes. So I stay in my apartment, don't go to the shelters, but people with children and of course families hide already for 11 days, sitting in basement, having no possibility for normal life. And also there are a huge shortage of food here, food supplies, because it's not possible to make the normal supply chain to organize it, and the people stay in lines to get some humanitarian aid or something what can be supplied. But of course it's not the situation when you can go to the supermarket and just get what you want. It's not possible here.
Okay, Maria, thank you very much indeed for painting that picture and being available to us. We've got to leave it there because we're going to the Ukrainian-Polish border.
Yeah, the United Nations Refugee Agency's warned that the exodus of Ukrainian refugees is the fastest growing crisis in Europe since World War II. Let's bring in our national reporter, Paul Hawkins. He's gone to the Polish border. Overnight, Paul, the Poles confirming they've had over 1 million refugees flooding into their country. You've been covering many of their stories, and indeed you're on the border for us this morning. Bring us up to date.
Yeah, morning, Isabel. Morning, Eamonn. I just wanted to step out of shot, really, just to show you the family that's just come across the border. They're on. That's heading into eastern Poland. Must be, I think, 5 children, 2 women. I think the children are ages sort of 3 up to 12 years old. They've literally just walked across the border, and you can see they're getting into a car now. It could be a vehicle provided by the authorities. It may be a taxi. Maybe they know the driver in the orange jacket. And they will be going off to a registration centre where they'll give their details. They may stay overnight, and then they're going to try and find a semi-permanent home in Poland, which at the moment we're hearing is quite difficult. So a lot of refugees that are coming across the border are heading for places like Germany and further afield where they can find semi-permanent homes. And just to give you an idea of the crossing that they've come through, if we go in this direction, this is heading into Ukraine, and this is where people have been coming across the border. We've been here for about 3 days. At this time of the day, it's normally very quiet, but then it builds up throughout the morning. More and more people arrive at the border. More and more vehicles from that direction arrive to take people away to these registration centres, which is where we'll be broadcasting from later this morning and giving an idea of the registration process. And then if I just show you over here, this is the kind of thing that sprung up in the past sort of 10 days or so. Sort of humanitarian charities, some individuals. There's a couple over here that have come all the way from Berlin privately, nothing to do with any sort of organisation, and it's just kind of sprung up here by the side of the road to try and welcome them, people that are coming through the border, having made that long journey. But at the moment, in terms of the numbers, 885,000 people, according to the UN, have arrived in Poland from Ukraine, and we've passed the 1.5 million mark in terms of Ukraine.
Well, those people that make a difference, that have driven from Berlin, we're going to be speaking to a guy later on this morning, and we have so many stories of this, people who donate and people who will then transport facilities and goods and luxuries, you know, toothpaste, goodness knows what. How welcome is that? I mean, does it make a difference?
It makes an enormous difference. It makes an enormous difference. This couple here behind me have come all the way from Berlin. We'll be speaking to them later on. They're nothing to do with any sort of organisation, and literally, as the Ukrainians come through the border, they will have all their stall laid out there, and they just provide whatever they can to the kids. Toys, like you were saying, toothpaste, basics, toiletries, whatever they can do to help them on their way. So it definitely makes a difference. The problem at the moment that we're hearing is finding semi-permanent homes. So there are plenty of places to just stay for one night, to get a bed, to get a shower, somewhere to stay. But in terms of something semi-permanent, because let's be honest, this isn't going to be wrapped up months, possibly years, now we're finding it more difficult in Poland to find homes for these people, and so they're having to go even further afield. I was speaking to one Ukrainian woman yesterday who I've been staying in touch with. She was heading for Berlin yesterday afternoon. I spoke to her, or messaged her late last night. She said that they're now instead going to head for somewhere near Hanover, because that's where there are more homes. So people are having to move, it seems, further and further afield.
OK, Paul, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. We're going to get more of a picture, Paul. What is going on there? I mean, that looks like a grey day, but it is really, really cold. Absolutely. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go to the break, and then we're going to be back, bring you up to date with what's happening news-wise right after this. Don't go away. Right, what I was trying to say.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
24 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on this Monday morning. Good morning to you. Eamonn and Isabel on GB Breakfast.
Let's bring you up to date with the headlines this morning. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, has said that over 10,000 people have applied for the UK's Ukraine Family Scheme since it was launched on Friday. So far, the government's confirmed only around 50 visas have actually been granted by the Home Office as of yesterday morning.
Labour says the government is giving Russian oligarchs too long to register the UK properties under new rules, saying the time limit should be moved from 6 months to 28 days. The government's economic crime bill, which partly aims to tackle Russian money in the UK, is due to be debated by MPs today, and we'll be discussing it later in the programme.
Denmark will hold a referendum in June on whether to join the European Union's defence pact. The Danes have opted out of the bloc's common security and defence policies for the last 30 years, but Russia's invasion of Ukraine has prompted a rethink.
A new code of practice aims to stop universities from offering students a place, regardless of their A-level grades, on condition that they make the university their firm first choice. Universities UK says so-called conditional, unconditional offers could demotivate students from working hard and fulfilling their potential.
Around 43% of girls who consider themselves sporty lose interest after primary school, a new report suggests. Charity Women in Sport surveyed over 4,000 teenagers and found that a fear of feeling judged and dislike of being watched were just some of the reasons preventing them from taking part.
More than £100 million is being raised in aid for Ukrainians by the British public. The Disasters Emergency Committee said that is the equivalent of more than £1 million an hour since the appeal was launched.
Now, Boris Johnson faces a week of intense diplomatic talks as he meets foreign leaders to build a united front against Vladimir Putin.
Well, in the studio now, Ewan Grant. Ewan's a former intelligence analyst of ex-Soviet states. Ewan, you're looking at this whole situation, you're living, breathing this, and we look at the borders around Ukraine, where Russia has influence. What's your view?
Well, you've a very good point there. Russia has influence. Russia has been in Moldova, including occupying the unrecognized section throughout since the end of the Soviet Union. I think that's reflected in the fact that Poland is big enough to look after itself for the moment. So the aim must be to reinforce the Black Sea states, Romania, Moldova, of course, not a member of NATO, wondering if it's next. And of course, to look, when will Putin go for Odessa? If he does, which I suspect he will, and how.
Explain to people why Odessa is so important.
It is a Russian bridgehead because there's large numbers of Russian speakers, and more importantly, there's a lot of former FSB, GRU military from the old days. It was a favoured retirement place. But above all, it's the economic lifeline. You cut off international trade if he gets Odessa, and he can get it by blockade or capturing.
Well, what sort of priority is Ukraine making to defend Odessa and indeed, you know, the NATO forces about supplying and reinforcing what's going on in Odessa? Surely that then has to be a key installation for them.
Well, you've hit the nail on the multi-billion-dollar question, not the $64,000. What can we give? And certainly NATO has reinforced, not just in numbers, but in quality, the level of the equipment, US Air Force over Romania, and very definitely over Romania. But as regards resupplying, it's through Poland that's the big one, the anti-tank weapons. Whether that will be enough for Odessa, frankly, I doubt. I think it will be lost, in which case we then must defend Romania and Bulgaria, but try and keep resupply through Poland.
What did you make of the Prime Minister's plan that he published yesterday? I mean, lots of jokes circling that, you know, it looked like a press release, and I'm sure it was just what Zelensky didn't need at this stage. Were there some sensible suggestions in there? And you know, how big a worry is it that Kyiv will fall in the coming days? I
very much hope he won't. I think he will fall, But remember, the West is still going to recognise him and his government as the legitimate government. I think Boris Johnson and his team are actually not doing too badly. It's multi-pronged. It's military support. It's the economic crime bill, with all its faults, of course, and limitations. We've grown up. We realise we can't behave the way we have, but also very much the information war. And it's highly significant that he's meeting with Trudeau and the Netherlands Prime Minister. Canada has a hugely influential Ukrainian population. That counts.
Yeah. This economic crime bill, let's talk about how that counts. You hear that Labour's opposition to this, which is saying, why are you giving them 6 months to declare their interests? Why not make this 28 days? And I must say, and I'd love to know what GB News viewers think of this, Roman Abramovich, right? If they expect him of being soiled, of having the wrong connections, why are they allowing him to sell Chelsea Football Club, you know, gain his assets and make off with them? That I cannot understand.
Well, it's what level of proof do you have to seize assets as opposed to freeze them, which is a different thing. You say they're still yours, but we're keeping the watch.
They're going, or he wouldn't be putting his football club up, his beloved football club up for sale.
Indeed. I have to say, I think the Labour proposal is valid because, remember, these people don't have to look in the back cupboard for the paperwork. They've got their lawyers and accountants to do that for them. They can provide the evidence of ownership and source of funds within days if they want to.
There is this theory, though, with Abramovich, isn't there, that he's got this position of potentially being a peace broker and he's got the trust of President Zelensky because he's an Israeli-Russian, the Jewish connection, some suggestion he was involved in the peace talks last week. It's just a curveball, but there was some suggestions that might be why the government aren't going after him so much. Yeah.
Don't rule that out. I noticed this came up yesterday on your programmes about the Israeli Prime Minister in Moscow and talking to Zelensky. That is hugely significant. A very large number of the real mega oligarchs are dual nationals with Israeli citizenship. We should not rule that. Remember when Putin grew up? He was a young man, and although ideologically they were against it, the Soviet Union military and security services admired the Israelis. As a young man, the Six-Day War, the raid on Entebbe airport, he will have taken that with his blood, and there are very real links to this day. These are personal links, going back, of course, to Netanyahu and his family history.
Yes.
So that should be looked at seriously.
Ewan, you're a fascinating man. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm very interested in what you have to say there. He's a former intelligence analyst of ex-Soviet states there. Odessa, big question mark around whether Odessa will stand, will continue to stand. Thank you very much indeed. And with that, we'll take a break. The time's 6:32. And after that, your Monday newspapers. We're going to be delving into those right after this. Don't go away.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back at 6:34. We're going to take you through your Monday morning front pages of the newspapers, starting with The Telegraph. It's picturing Ukrainian civilians running for their lives north of Kyiv, leading with Boris Johnson calling Vladimir Putin barbaric.
Now, that's something we're going to talk about in just a minute with our newspaper reviewers as we bring you The Mirror, and it pictures a father carrying his daughter as they flee the shelling on the outskirts of Ukraine. So again, this whole idea of civilians now. So what happened to these humanitarian corridors? That's the question we're going to be asking. The headline, save them.
The Times has the same picture and describes the Russian advance on the civilian neighbourhoods.
Guardian says that President Macron has issued a plea to Putin for a safe passage for refugees after 2 ceasefires failed at the weekend.
Here's the Mail. The UK's defence chief says Putin's victory in Ukraine is not inevitable. His invasion's a mess and Russian forces have lost aircraft in the last 24 hours.
Very beautiful picture there in the bottom right. Sorry, I just wanted to stay on, but it ties into this one here in the Daily Star, and it's a tribute from Damien Hurley, Liz Hurley's son, who Shane Warne was engaged to for 2 years. My father figure, Shane Warne, by Liz Hurley's son. In that, and the Star is hero Warne died after an extreme liquid diet brought about. They're saying that this the heart attack could have been induced by the severity of a diet like this.
OK, it's time now to go through your Monday morning newspapers. Joining us today is the Climate Campaign and regular Amy Cameron, and for the first time we're joined by former diplomat Nick Busvine. Very well.
Now, Nick, you're important today because these diplomatic solutions today is going to be a whirlwind of these going on as well. What good can they do?
Well, this is, I have to say, the most... I've served in various high-threat areas around the world, but this is easily the scariest, most profound crisis that I think I've encountered in my lifetime, I think since the Second World War. And it's a time to sort of forget minor disputes, and I think what we're seeing is an extraordinary coming together on the part of the international community to condemn what's going on, and that's crystallizing in the form of a whole variety of action, sanctions, weapons supply, and so on. And one hopes that it'll really make a difference, because the pictures coming out and the stories coming out of Ukraine are just truly horrifying.
Nick, what would, it's quite simplistic to ask you, but what would make a difference to this man? I mean, his own people talking to him may not even make a difference. What is going to stop him? What is going to make him step back? President Putin, obviously, I'm talking about.
That's an incredibly good question. And of course, the fear that we all have is that as sanctions and counteraction by the international community become more effective, what will his reaction be? And his reaction so far appears to be a willingness to double down and increase the ante, like some kind of nightmarish high-stakes poker player. He's mentioned on at least 3 occasions the circumstances in which he might escalate to some form of nuclear option. And this is a truly extraordinary state of affairs. But I think the international community has absolutely no option but to stand up to this and do what it can without trying to risk uncontrolled escalation.
Well, look, as Nick said, this is like a nightmarish poker player threatening to double down. And you've chosen the front of the mirror, Amy Cameron, and this is focusing on the people who are really paying the price for all of this, and that is the civilians who thought they had a humanitarian corridor out of the emergency situation, and it just wasn't honoured.
Yeah, I mean, these images, which are all over the paper today, are absolutely heartbreaking. And if anyone has seen any of the video footage, it's very difficult to watch. This was the second time we had attempted a humanitarian corridor to allow civilians to flee. It broke down very quickly, arguably didn't occur for any period of time at all. At the moment, we are unclear on why that is. There are some suggestions that it may have been a communication breakdown. I think the suggestion is that the infrastructure around the Russian troops at this point is fragmented, it's shattered, it's incompetent to some extent. However, I think we also have to consider the fact that this was intentional, a distractionary tactic while the Russians attempted to regroup in other areas and take attention off that while shelling civilians. I think exactly as our colleagues just mentioned, the situation with Putin is terrifying because he has staked so much of his personal reputation and popularity in Russia on this military intervention. And unfortunately, I think what we're seeing is as the international community sort of tightens around him, he appears to be willing to go to all extreme lengths. I think nuclear is one risk, but I think chemical warfare is another, which we've seen him deploy in Syria. I think that's probably in the immediate term a more likely risk than nuclear and phenomenally damaging to the Ukrainian
However,
population.
all of that is the bad news. The good news, Nick, comes from the head of Britain's top military commander, Admiral Sir Tony Radakin. What's he saying?
Well, I think we could all see on the press that the convoy, the massive convoy coming from the north, had got bogged down. And as I understand it, I think, an awful lot of the soldiers involved in coming down from the north are conscripts. I don't think they were told in advance that they were going to be involved in a full-scale war. I think the planning assumptions in Moscow was that this was going to be a lightning strike, that Kiev would fall in a matter of a couple of days. And they've run into all sorts of logistical problems, and they underestimated the degree of resistance that the Ukrainians were prepared to put up. And I think the Russians know from bitter experience in Afghanistan, as do we, that you can use force and might to overwhelm an area, but actually holding it against the will of its people is an entirely different matter. And now, Sir Tony Radakin, I think, has rightly focused on the fact that it may well be that the Russian armed forces have bitten off more than they can chew. Yes, they can bomb and mass murder civilians, but can they hold a country against its will? And can they suppress an insurgency that is not only backed by the spirit of ordinary Ukrainian people who are fighting for their lives, their families and their country, but also supplied and resourced externally by the West?
Amy, we were talking to Paul Hawkins, our man on the ground in Poland, about how Poland's almost reached capacity in terms of how many people it can put up long term. And people are looking further afield now to try and find some sort of settlement whilst the war rages. And reports over the weekend that some Ukrainian refugees were turned away in Calais from seeking refuge here in the UK, being denied by Priti Patel, we should stress. Tell us more how the Times covering this, page 11.
Yeah, this story is also covered in a number of places. I think what the papers are speaking to is how out of step the British government appears to be with sentiment of the British public. So I think what we've seen, the polling last week said 77% of British citizens would support visa-free access for Ukrainians to the UK.
I think that's what's happening in Scotland, isn't it?
Actually, I was not aware of that.
I think certainly there was a proposal there that they'd taken...
Nicola Sturgeon definitely wants to go further.
Yeah, and I don't know how much...
You take in the refugees and then you do the paperwork when they're there.
Yeah, which seems, I think, given the circumstances, like the only option. I think to be asking people, last week we saw people being asked to travel around within Ukraine to go to different embassy offices, different consulates to get their paperwork sorted. Now we're hearing that people are being sent to Brussels or back to Paris from Calais. I think what we've seen in terms of the huge public outpouring, the Daily Mail's fundraiser now up at around £4 million, I believe. Huge numbers of offers of support from the British public. And with the government, with Priti Patel, I think they've failed to recognise a shift in public mood. This is very, very different from many of the migration conversations we've had in the past. The EU have already waived visa requirements for 3 years for Ukrainians, no requirement for family support. We know from much of the footage we've seen, many of these Ukrainians speak wonderful English. So it's really understandable that they may want to come to the UK.
A lot of them don't intend to stay.
No.
They want to just quickly turn around as quickly as they can and go back home.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the kind of small points of light in all of this has been the Ukrainian spirit. You know, this is a people who clearly want to fight for their country. They are not fleeing with the intention of staying in other countries. They're fleeing for safety. And all too many of them have had to leave husbands, sons, brothers behind. So they're talking about temporary refuge in a war scenario. I do hope that to some extent this broadens our conversation about how we deal with those fleeing conflict more generally.
Nick, this war environment includes economic sanctions, and the big one is Russian oil and gas. America now get involved in this. This comes from the Mail, page 2.
Yes, there's this discussion going on about whether Russian oil imports should be sanctioned. And I think I noticed in the market this morning that although Brent crude is now at the 130 or some extraordinary dollars a barrel, some extraordinary figure, they can't sell Russian oil at the moment. And that's because a lot of market traders are anticipating that Russian oil may be banned or sanctioned, or they're just not doing it for moral reasons. I noticed, and that would, of course, have an impact.
Would it? I mean, how long would the war last if suddenly all of that was cut?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's going to suddenly stop. And of course, as Eamonn said, you know, gas isn't mentioned here. And I think one of the reasons Putin sort of bided his time over many years and made sure that effectively Europe in particular was firmly on the gas hook, and switching off gas would mean the lights going out in large chunks of Europe. So, you know, the Russians have thought about this years in advance, I think, and it's going to be tricky. But I think fundamentally we're going to face, all of us are going to face real pain if we're going to impose sanctions that are actually meaningful.
Well, on that very subject, we're now going to find out about economics and how it affects us, how it affects the pound in your wallet or your purse. Nick and Amy, thank you both very much indeed. They're going to be back in about an hour's time, so tune in for that. Because now we go to Liam Hannigan, who will, on that very subject, talk about On the Money. Liam, good morning. Good seeing to you. Hear what our studio guests are saying here, and this story featuring in the Mail about America saying, right, let's now ban Russian oil. But there'll be pain in that for all of us.
There absolutely would, Eamonn, if that is what happens. I mean, in the middle of last week, there was a bipartisan bill that started to go through Congress. Over the weekend, what sparked this fear in global oil markets, and oil touched $138 a barrel this morning. That's up from just $70 a barrel back in December. That's the scale of the increase. What sparked these fears is that US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is saying that the US government is now exploring the idea of banning the sale of Russian oil abroad. The Americans can do that given their grip over the global banking and payment system. Russia accounts for about 10 to 15% of the world's oil supply on any given day. And oil prices went up to almost $150 a barrel during that financial panic in 2008. They're now touching $140 a barrel. I wrote over the weekend that we could see £2 a litre for petrol and diesel on the forecourts. It doesn't bring me any pleasure to say that, but in my view, that is now the reality.
That is the reality, and it's one thing saying, you know, use your car less, but if that's your way of getting around, getting into work, you know, visiting aged parents or whatever it is, it's no help. But that's the way it's headed, that's the way it looks, and it all adds to the cost of living crisis.
It does, but I wonder, you know, whether the British public, I mean, we've seen unbelievable amounts of money raised since the DEC committee launched their appeal. I think 100 million has reached. We heard about the Daily Mail.
In 100 hours?
In 100 hours. The Daily Mail campaign raising huge sums of money. And I wonder if people need to think in this mindset, you know what, we may have to pay more at the forecourt for our fuel in our car, but we don't want to be fueling Putin's war machine, and that's the price that we have to pay.
You've absolutely put your finger on it, Isabel. There is a huge surge of public opinion, as you say, an outpouring of public generosity towards Ukrainian people who are suffering this ghastly, brutal invasion. But on the other hand, the reality is that for a lot of people, getting in their car and van is the way they make their living, the way that they provide for their family. And these sanctions, if they were going to be meaningful, and crikey, are they meaningful? The incredible sanctions that the West is putting on Russia are really quite unprecedented display of determination by the US, the UK, and the European Union. The Swiss putting on sanctions, the Japanese putting sanctions on Russia, the Japanese saying that they're going to be part of this ban on Russian oil, and they import an awful lot of Russian oil. Of course, that is incredible, but it is going to impose pain here in the UK. I mean, just to put this in historic contexts, when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan back in the late 70s, we remember that, don't we, Eamonn? That was also at a time when oil prices and inflation was already high. And in my view, Putin's waited again until the cost of living crisis was where it is. We've been talking about the cost of living crisis on GB News for weeks and weeks before this invasion, Liam, because already commodity prices were high.
How much worse, Liam? How much more pain can we take? I mean, we've got the president of the World Bank, and he said last week that this war is a complete catastrophe, he says, because it comes at a bad time for the world because inflation was already rising. And, people watch programs like ours, we listen to the radio, we read the newspapers, and they're feeling the cost of living crisis, and they're thinking, bloomin' heck, this is going to get worse, much worse.
I think one source for optimism, Eamonn, is this. The Chinese also import oil. These super high oil prices, if that's what it comes to, and we're already between $130 and $140 a barrel, the all-time high is almost 150, as I said. That's going to impact the Chinese too, and they're not going to like that either. You're right. This is a war between between Russia and Ukraine. Between them, they're not massive economies in the world. Russia's just about in the top 10 on some definitions. Ukraine's a tiny economy, but given their exports of oil and gas and food and fertilizer and industrial metals and all kinds of things we use in production, it is going to impact inflation, but that inflation is also going to harm the Chinese, and it's going to impact their standard of living. So look, we're right to focus every day, as we do on GB News, on the military aspects, on the humanitarian aspects, on, as Isabel rightly says, the tremendous resolve of British people to help Ukrainian people who are showing untold resolve. But there will be economic pain, yet that economic pain will be shared by the Chinese as well. So perhaps down the line, the Chinese can bring their influence to bear on the Russians in order to try and sue for peace and come to some kind of agreement that can make global financial markets calm down. These are arcane ideas, Eamonn and Isabel. Okay. But in a crisis, everyone needs to understand economic and financial realities.
Well, look, I know you're going to bring us those financial and economic realities with Liam's show On the Money. You can see it here. He'll be in studio here at GB News at 1 o'clock today. Liam, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, guys.
OK, let's move away from the crisis in Ukraine and focus on a big story that emerged over the weekend, that Her Majesty the Queen has decided that she won't be returning to Buckingham Palace and will, in fact, live permanently in Windsor Castle. Of course, she moved there at the start of the pandemic in 2020 and has remained there ever since.
Royal biographer and broadcaster Angela Levin joins us now. Angela, good morning to you. Thanks for your company.
Good morning.
So what brings this about? Age, the fact that Prince Philip is buried there? Is it a form of downsizing?
I think it's a lot of things, actually. The work on Buckingham Palace is going on for 10 years. Floors have been lifted, wallpaper's been peeled off. It's not a very homely place. It's never been that. You think it's got 775 rooms. And I think if you are alone, as the Queen is, it's very difficult to feel comfortable in a place like that, even if she's got her private quarters. I mean, they're doing the electricity, they're doing the plumbing. This was taken over by royal families in 1826. So it really does need a good going over, I think. The Queen has never been interested in the decorations. I mean, even as a child, she let her mother do her own room because she wasn't at all interested. So it's not something that she would want to go and talk to them about and discuss. So in Windsor, it's more cosy. She's got relations there. Prince Andrew is there. Prince Edward is there with Sophie, and Prince Charles and Prince William go and visit her very regularly. And so she feels more comfortable. It's more in the country, and I think it's quite right. But as well as that, it is that this is where she was with Prince Philip. There's no banging of builders around her. She can be at peace. She's always loved this castle, and I think that's quite right to do. So I think it's a combination.
Then, you know, as we can expect a new monarch probably in the next decade or so, if those building works are still going on, can we assume that the seat of the monarchy might not be in Buckingham Palace in the future?
No, Prince Charles has said he wants to stay there because he wants it to be a sort of monarchy HQ. So he will go in there, but otherwise it doesn't have the same feeling as if there's humans there. But I think he will wait until most of it's done. It's not going to rush in with, trip on the floorboards. But I think it will be more of a museum, but with a human part of it, I think. And of course, other members of the royal family have sort of rooms there when they want to stay in London. So I think, again, this is quite sensible, but I don't think the Queen wants to cope with that. Prince Charles is fine. He can go with Camilla and they can manoeuvre around. And also
their life's in London, really, isn't it? And that's where they have to be, I suppose, especially as succession comes that much closer. And the Queen, her horses, Windsor, all those grounds, that all makes sense. But there's something more significant about this as an action, I suppose, Angela, and that is not only is she moving residents, but also she's moving the way she conducts her roles. We hear that a lot more is going to be done remotely.
Yes, a lot more. If you remember, just a week or so ago, she was talking to military personnel who came to see her, and she said, as you can see, I can't move. And her legs have sort of seized up, really, and it's very difficult for her to walk now, poor woman. And so if she's there comfortably, she can do a lot remotely, but it is also stepping right back, isn't it? I mean, we just all hope that for the Jubilee celebrations in June, that she will be able to come to at least some of them. I think it's all being scaled back and different arrangements are being quietly made. But it is an acknowledgement that she suddenly seems much older. She just is much more crunched, and the sadness of being on her own, I think, has overtaken her quite a lot.
Okay, Angela, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this morning, getting up so early to do that. We'll speak again soon. For the moment, thank you very much indeed.
Well, with the time...
She was so happy, she sort of fixed smile there. As I said thank you to her, and she was just happy.
Yeah, she was happy. That's good. That's what happens when they speak to you.
We hope you're happy this morning. We know the news is very, very depressing,
it is.
But it is the news. There's nothing much we can do about it. We wish we could.
Yeah. Stay with us. We'll have more news, but we'll also have some weather for you. Let's bring you up to date on that, first of all. Well, looking ahead to today's weather, the UK is looking fine and dry for many, with sunny spells, though windier than over the weekend. Let's take a look at the details.
Beginning with the southwest, it should stay dry, and most of us will see some sunny breaks. The brisk winds will make it feel very chilly, though.
Let's move to the southeast, and across London there'll be more sunshine with largely clear blue skies. Chilly here, highs are just 6 or 7 Celsius.
Breezy but dry across Wales, perhaps not as much sunshine as over the weekend. Chillier, especially with the wind.
That's also how it's looking as we head towards the Midlands. A dry morning and afternoon with some decent sunny breaks. Temperatures a little below average, highs of 8 at best.
cloudier in the northeast of England. There will be some sunshine breaking through. Temperatures will be a little down on average for early spring.
Plenty of sunshine across Scotland this lunchtime. Winds will be mostly light, though out towards the west it'll be quite windy at times, adding to the chilly feel.
Northern Ireland again bathed in sunshine, barely a cloud in the sky, a touch chillier than over the weekend and feeling cold with the brisk wind.
A little change in the weather this afternoon, though thick cloud will push in from the south later, and that is how the weather is shaping up for you on this Monday.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Boris Johnson warns of even darker days ahead amid reports of a renewed Russian assault on Kyiv.
Hello there, very good morning to you wherever you're watching. The time just after 7 o'clock on this Monday, the 7th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel. We're live across the world. We're on TV, on radio and online, leading the news.
The Prime Minister will meet with his Canadian and Dutch counterparts today to try and keep up international pressure on Russia over its continued invasion of Ukraine.
The economic crime bill will be sped through Parliament, but opponents say it is too little too late to clamp down on oligarch dirty money.
It comes after last night's powerful address by the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in which he called on the West to do more and promised we will punish everyone who committed atrocities in this war on our land.
And with over 1 million refugees crossing into Poland, our reporter is there for us this morning.
Good morning from the Dorhus border. It is freezing cold. We will be speaking to some of the Ukrainian refugees who are fleeing conflict in their country and heading for Poland and beyond.
And as always, remember you can join in all of our discussions today by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GBNews.
Russia says corridors in Kyiv, Mariupol, Kharkiv and Sumy will be open today at the request of Emmanuel Macron, the French president. It comes after 2 failed attempts over the weekend.
Well, today Boris Johnson will meet with Prime Ministers from Canada and the Netherlands to discuss the ongoing situation in Ukraine.
Meanwhile, the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, says the government is doing everything they can to speed up visa applications from Ukraine refugees in all European Union countries.
We are surging all capacity. We're expediting applicants and applications through our system. So as I've said, as we stand here now, people are being given the right to come to the United Kingdom for 3 years. This is an incredible scheme, and we are doing everything possible, surging capacity across every single application centre across the EU, any EU member state where we have staff. We are surging. We are flying people into the region right now, the border countries, the host countries where refugees are coming into, so we can fast track and speed up applications.
Well, the United Nations Refugee Agency has warned that the exodus of Ukrainian refugees is the fastest growing crisis in Europe since World War II.
Paul Hawkins is at Poland's border for us this morning. We're going to go to him to get a whole idea, a whole feeling of what is going on there and how busy it is. Early morning, Paul. First of all, the conditions. It just looks like a grey day, but you're telling us it's cold, so cold.
Yeah, morning, morning, Isabel. From a freezing cold Dorohusk border, it is very. In fact, I don't know if the camera's picking up. It is technically snowing at the moment, very gently, but it is snowing, and it is very cold here. And keeping warm is one of the challenges when you're here. Of course, trying to keep warm takes so much energy out. You can see that a lot of humanitarian organisations have sprung up here at the border trying to help people. Over here, actually, they've got kind of soup and coffee. This is Caritas, the Catholic charity, who've arrived here to try and help some of the people that are fleeing across the border. And we can actually speak to some of them now. This is Natalia and Misha, who've come over from Ukraine. They don't speak English, so we're going to use our translator Mikolo here to tell us what is going on. Natalia, first of all, tell us why you felt you had to leave Ukraine.
А чому ви вирішили залишити Україну? Because to save the life of our children, because the children is our future. We need to defend our borders. We need to defend Ukraine, but it's most important the life of our children.
And what was it like where you were living? Have the Russians been attacking your town?
Чи були ви атаки Новоград-Волинського росіянами чи ні?
Постійні повітряні тривоги, але поки що там не було,
Russia didn't attack the city, but it was all of the time the alarms. But Korostan and Zhytomyr was under attack. In next city in Zhytomyr region can be the Novograd, it's my native town.
Okay. And where is she heading next?
А куди ви зараз їдете? For my siblings we go into Lodz.
Okay. And they have accommodation there?
І вони вам предоставляють житло, все надають, да? Yeah, yes. They invite us, to help.
Готові нас всіх прийняти, але їдемо тільки їдемо.
Because we just go with children and mothers and children.
And Misha, what do you make of what is happening in your country?
Міша, що ти думаєш, що сталося взагалі в Україні?
Тотальний армагеддец.
It's like the Armageddon, totally Armageddon, like disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how does he feel? Because they've never been. We should explain as well. Natalia and Misha have never been outside Ukraine, never been to Germany before.
Ви ніколи не були, да, не покидали територію держави. Це перший раз. Absolutely, it's for the first time abroad.
Хотілося б не за таких обставин. Хотілося б.
We would like, to see the world, but in the other reasons, not just to leave the country, run away because of the war.
How do they feel about starting a new life potentially in Germany?
А що ви взагалі думаєте про життя в Німеччині, там, як ви оцінюєте?
Я думаю, що так, це звичайно добре, але
Germany is good, but home in our heart.
How do you feel about what Russia is doing?
Що ви думаєте, що росіяни роблять?
Дезінформують.
Disinformation.
І вони вбивають своїх людей, не тільки наших.
Because they killed ourselves and civilians.
Ставляться до свого народу так. Що ми можемо
Because how is the Russian possible that Putin, to say this from our nations, like send the troops to Ukraine?
Yeah. There you go. So that gives you a kind of a sense of how people are feeling here when they cross the border, and a sense of where they are going. In this case, they're staying within Poland. Other people we've been speaking to, they're going to Germany. I spoke to one lady yesterday, a 57-year-old woman who she can't see. She'd made the crossing to the border on her own with her dogs, and she's heading all the way to Lyon to meet her daughter there.
It's just relentless, Paul. I mean, you stay on that border and these people just keep coming, these stories, absolutely heartbreaking. And I guess it's this juxtaposition of these terrible, terrible human stories that you're bringing to us, but also the amazing compassion and humanity that they're being greeted by. It's really moving. Paul, we'll be back with you a little bit later on in the programme. Thanks for bringing us that.
One of the things Paul told us in the last hour was how welcome the gifts that people like you send, the blankets, the sanitary products, just the simple little things, gloves, change of underwear.
Yeah, I saw pictures over the weekend. Polish women or families had gone to the train stations and dropped off buggies, prams, really expensive kit.
That's a great idea.
So people were coming off the trains, having left everything in a huge rush to try and save them, and they could just help themselves because it was just those little things. Another bit of footage I saw was people handing out teddy bears so that people just smiled. The first thing they did when they arrived in Poland was smile. Yeah, it was just something positive.
Right, well, let's see if we have anything positive to hear from security specialist Will Geddes, who joins us in the studio now. That is one way for people to get out of the country, flee as a refugee. There are other key individuals that have to be extracted as well, aren't there?
Well, there's a wide spectrum of people, and it's interesting what's going on down there in terms of not being able to trust these refugee corridors. As we keep seeing, ceasefires are being broken almost within the first hour. That there are some humanitarian efforts that are going on by very brave Ukrainians, but also expats, who are running the gauntlet to get people out. And we're not just talking high-profile individuals, we're talking about families. So although we hear about sort of foreign fighters and foreign volunteers going down to Ukraine, we aren't looking at these individuals necessarily going down to operate as mercenaries or to operate necessarily as volunteers to the Ukrainian force. They're actually down there to try and help families and various people get out. But there is a good, large community of expats that are now caught in these pockets which are surrounded by Russian troops, which is making it very difficult for them to move.
That being said, there are plenty of mercenaries going in there at the moment, all under orders from Putin, most of them trying to get President Zelensky. I was hearing this morning that the latest recruits that Putin's been calling in, not just from Chechnya, but now from Syria as well, where we know he's been particularly ruthless in the last decade.
Yeah, a lot of this circles back to this infamous Wagner Group, Isabel, you're absolutely right. And this is a deniable asset that Putin and the Kremlin have used for many years now, right across the world, from Africa to South America. And
excuse me, could we not be doing the same in reverse on Putin? No one wants to take responsibility or be seen to execute him or take it out, but would the West be involved in anything similar?
Well, on two levels, yes. The first level is I heard last week that a very successful businessman put a £1 million bounty on Putin's head. To be honest, when you bear in mind that Osama bin Laden had 50 million on his head, I don't think $1 million is going to make a great deal of difference, particularly as he's probably one of the most protected people in the world right now. But there is this whole question of private military companies that are being utilised in Ukraine, which again allows for plausible deniability by any Western countries that may choose to finance or sponsor, in the same way as Western countries are financing and sponsoring, obviously, weapons for Ukraine. Why not provide also combat troops? But it's not any of those nations visibly getting involved.
But there's this aspect which you raised earlier, which was, right, there have been attempts or people sent in to take out President Zelensky. Yet we're told that Russian Secret Service has let it be known that this is happening and therefore thwarting these groups that have been sent in to take him out. So what does this say?
OK, so this is really interesting, because you're absolutely right. There are these assassination teams. There's a very large list of what they call high-value targets, or a kill list. Zelensky obviously being on there, Klitschko being another, various key individuals that are seen as part of, if you like, the public relations campaign to drive the morale of the Ukrainian forces. So in terms of these individuals within the FSB that have been leaking information to Ukrainian Secret Service, this is very promising because obviously they're giving them the heads up in advance. And there have been 3 assassination attempts on Zelensky already that have been attempted. Obviously, none of them have been successful, thankfully. But again, if you've got people within the Kremlin who are showing their disenchantment with the whole situation, this is good news.
And I suppose you mentioned Klitschko, and I saw an extraordinary interview over the weekend with a now Russian prisoner of war captured by the Ukrainians, who was saying that he had been given this misinformation that he was just going in on a military exercise. And it was only when he saw Klitschko and clips of him speaking that he managed to watch through the internet in Ukraine that he really understood what his country was doing. And for him, he said that was a real moment of regret because he'd admired Klitschko for years, not the mayor, but his brother, as a boxer. And it's that power, isn't it? It's the power of these, and that's why they're number 1 or number 2 on the kill list for Putin, because they have that power not just on the on the Ukrainian morale, but also on Russian morale.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and again, this is why Russia is being very, very clever and careful about filtering what information is getting to the Russian people. I've heard some really interesting new avenues of how information is going through, one of which was to actually put new updates and information through TripAdvisor on some of the big hotels in Russia, for example.
Yeah.
So people can look at the information there to try and bypass the controls the state have put in place. But yeah, these individuals are absolutely key. So they have to be protected at all costs. People like Zelensky, people like Klitschko, those that are seen as the spokespersons, but also the standard bearers for the Ukraine resistance.
Well, really appreciate your insight on such things. Will get us as a security specialist. Thank you very much indeed. We've got to leave it there. We're going to bring you up to date with the latest news with the time, very nearly 7:15.
The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, has said that over 10,000 people have applied for the UK's Ukraine Family Scheme since it was launched on Friday. So far, though, the government confirmed only 50 visas have been granted by the Home Office as of Sunday morning.
Labour says the government is giving Russian oligarchs too long to register the UK properties under new rules, saying the time limit should be moved from 6 months to 28 days. The government's economic crime bill, which partly aims to tackle Russian money in the UK, is due to be debated by MPs today.
Denmark is to hold a referendum in June on whether to join the European Union's Defence Pact. The Danes have opted out of the bloc's common security and defence policies for the last 30 years. But Russia's invasion of Ukraine has prompted a rethink.
A new code of practice aims to stop universities from offering students a place regardless of their A-level grades, if they make the university their firm first choice. Universities UK says so-called conditional, unconditional offers could demotivate students from fulfilling their potential.
Around 90,000 children in England have had lessons to brush up on their speech skills following concerns they'd had suffered due to COVID. More than 2/3 of primary schools have signed up for targeted language support since August 2020.
33% of girls who consider themselves sporty lose interest after primary school, a new report suggests. Charity Women in Sport surveyed over 4,000 teenagers, and they found that a fear of feeling judged or disliked or of being watched were just some of the reasons preventing them from taking part in sport.
And the strength of the UK's labour market has recovered to pre-pandemic levels for the first time. That's according to new research from the business advisory firm BDO. The firm's monthly employment index in the report showed a reading above the 95-point level, which indicates significant growth since February 2020. Now it's a Monday morning. We like to catch up, see what we've been up to over the weekend. Did you have a good weekend?
Are you being funny?
No. I'm just asking, what have you been up to? Oh, sorry, Man United. OK, well, let's move on then.
OK.
I had a lovely weekend.
Had you a lovely weekend? I'm glad for you.
My little one learnt to ride a bike. It was one of those momentous days. You remember the day you learnt to ride a bike?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, she's 4 years old, just turned 4. Oh, there she is.
There's
that's
Poppy and Liam.
My husband, holding on to her very tightly, and then sort of lets go.
Look, she's on her own.
No,
yeah.
I have to say we had quite a few major wipeouts before that.
Oh, incredible.
But what a lovely sunny day it was.
So she did it.
She did it, and
pleased with herself?
She's so pleased with herself, and it's taken her a while. Her big brother got it straight away when he was a bit younger than her and went off, but she's been really nervous, and as I said, quite a few falls yesterday.
There's nothing as good as that feeling when you're being held, and then your parent or whoever is with you says, you're on your own, you're doing it on your own.
It's just the perfect metaphor for parenting, don't you think? It's just, you hold on to them, you nurture them, you love them, and then you kind of have to let them go. It's just in motion there.
Yeah.
It's a bit sad, but lovely.
Bikes nowadays, do they still have... When I was young, you had girls' bikes and boys' bikes. I'm not really sure why you need girls' bikes and boys' bikes.
In adult form, you still do, in some cases anyway, certainly because they have a lower crossbar, so it's easier to get on and off. But, I mean, for kids, they're just pink or blue if it's girls or boys. But to be honest, they're so expensive. We just bought ones for the big brother, and then she's inherited her older brother's bike.
I don't understand why you just don't have unisex bikes. Why in this day and age? I mean, you're not hoisting skirts and petticoats, are you?
No, I don't know. Yeah.
All I remember is when you haven't done it. You know where they say, you never forget it. It's like riding a bike, you never forget it. I think you do.
Do you think?
I think you
When was the last time you rode a bike?
A few weeks ago. But what I find is if you don't do it for a while, you're tender in places that you don't expect
That's
to be.
so true.
Yes, you become tenderised.
You've got an incredible story about riding a bicycle around where I live, along the Thames, haven't you? What famous interviewer took you out on a bike ride?
Oh, Des Lynam.
There you go.
Des Lynam, yes. I remember going to see Des Lynam once for an interview, and he said, get on these bikes, and he did those, in those days, what were they called? Cross-country bikes or something?
Or mountain bike.
Mountain bikes, yeah. When they were all the rage, all the in things, yeah. But, yeah.
You and Des out on your bike?
I've got an electric one now.
Have you?
Yeah.
They're brilliant. They're
very heavy.
They are, but you don't have to do anything because they're electric, so it shouldn't matter.
But the lovely thing is people don't realise you're on an electric
bike. So they think you're super fit and you're overtaking.
You're doing well.
I think they do realise, FYI.
Yeah. Coming up to 7:20. Good morning to you. We're on TV, we're on radio, we're online. This is GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Right, Boris Johnson, of course, facing a week of intense diplomatic talks. He's meeting foreign leaders to build that united front against Vladimir Putin. We're joined now by political correspondent Tom Harwood to bring us up to speed on what the Prime Minister's diary looks like. This morning he's hosting Mark Rutte and Justin Trudeau at Downing Street. They are the Prime Ministers for Canada and Netherlands. What are they planning to talk about?
That's right. Last week, the Prime Minister headed off to Baltic nations and to Poland. This time, foreign leaders are coming to Downing Street to talk about continuing that pressure and indeed enhancing that pressure on the Russian regime. Last night, the Prime Minister spoke yet again to Volodymyr Zelensky on the phone, where he agreed he would push European leaders in particular to try and go further on the SWIFT international banking system. Now, currently 8 Russian banks, some of the biggest Russian banks, have been cut out of the SWIFT financial system, meaning that they can't do those financial transactions. The UK is pushing for particularly G7 countries and the EU to go further than that, to cut every single Russian financial institution out of SWIFT. That's something that the UK announced that it would pursue at the start of last week. And there are meetings like these that are taking place to try and build that international coalition. But throughout the course of this conflict, throughout the course of the Western response to it, the key guiding line through all of this has been that the West needs to move at the same pace to present that united front. The one thing that Mr. Putin wants in the eyes of particularly British and American intelligence is to break up the resolve of the West, to try and get people moving at different speeds. So it's very, very key in the eyes of the British government to try and keep these international alliances with Washington, D.C., with Brussels, indeed with Canada and, of course, the Netherlands today as well, to keep them moving at the same speed.
It is my honour.
Oh, Justin Trudeau just interjecting there, just showing who obviously is coming to Downing Street today. So that's happening in Downing Street. In Parliament, meanwhile, the economic crime bill being sped through, and then Liz Truss will be presenting that, will be whizzing before a select committee as well. So a really busy day talking about these sanctions.
Absolutely, and there's a bit of contention over the economic crime bill. Of course, we saw it in draft form at the start of last week, but now there have been some amendments made, and one of the key parts of the economic crime bill is creating this register of foreign ownership of property. And at the moment, what well, in the first iteration of this bill, the government was giving up to a year for people to get onto that register. That's been cut down in this iteration to 6 months. Exactly. But the Labour Party is proposing an amendment to this to try and bring it down to 28 days because they say 6 months is just too long a time for some of these oligarchs
they all
who might
get their
be able
money
to
out.
move
They
things
sell
around.
up and get their money out, including football clubs. You know, Abramovich can sell that, take his money out. If there's questions or doubts against him, then he shouldn't be allowed to do that. Tom, thank you very much indeed. We'll have to leave it there. I was also just thinking about bikes.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, in a man's bike, there's a male bike, there's that bar across the top, right? And having to balance yourself, I found, being Irish, I've got little legs.
I was wondering where you're going with that, yeah.
So you are probably an endomorph.
I'm perfectly proportioned.
You've got long legs.
Don't know why.
I'm an ectomorph. I've got short legs and a long body. That's true.
Sorry, you're making me laugh.
That's true. So basically, I find
You need a special bike.
I can't put my little Irish legs down and hold myself on the bike. I might wobble.
I want to go for a bike ride with you.
I might wobble.
We should go around Richmond Park. You can hire a bike there and we can go
Your
for
big, slinky, long legs. You're like a giraffe.
I don't know what I've got. I don't know. Anyway, well, let's do that. And I'll get that on Instagram for
23 minutes past 7. Good morning to you.
Yeah, look, we're focusing now on, how the Russian invasion has, of course, torn families apart. Those Ukrainian families having to make incredibly difficult decisions. And some families are indeed coming together. A Ukrainian woman married her partner in Leeds after they vowed their big day would not be stopped by the Russian invasion of her homeland.
Yulia Sivkova and Paul Dodsworth tied the knot on Friday. What they did was they live-streamed the ceremony to friends and family, sheltering from the war. And this was in Lebedin, and it's 60 miles from the Russian border. So here is our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley with the story.
Ukrainian-born Yulia Siskova was on the verge of postponing her wedding to Paul Dodsworth in Leeds after fighting erupted in her home country. The couple met at Yulia's business, Blair Pancake House, in March last year and got engaged in August, and they've been planning their wedding ever since. To bring some light in such a dark time, the couple pressed on with their wedding on Friday. But Yulia and Paul were due to fly to Ukraine today for a church blessing, and are instead using the time to raise vital funds for humanitarian aid in the war-torn country.
Ukrainian people, really strong nation, really strong. We never give up. We always fight till the end. If we know we're right, we will stand for our right. I'm proud. I'm proud of Ukrainian people. I'm glad. I'm a British citizen at the moment, but I'm glad I'm from Ukraine originally. And I'm glad I met a lovely gentleman who actually support me in this hard time, because we want to cancel the wedding. We want to change everything, but we think we have to fight as well. It's our little war as well. If you give up, we give up kind of Ukrainian war. So with our wedding, we try to collect the money and help Ukrainian people who lost the houses to rebuild again, rebuild new life, build new future. So I think if we carry on with our wedding, we can help. If we cancel our wedding, it means like we give up. But I'm Ukrainian inside. I never give up.
So all that money for the honeymoon?
Yeah, all money with the honeymoon. All money what people going to give us a present for honeymoon. If it's going to be anything, it's all going to go to Ukraine. I really believe Ukraine is going to win. I'm not 100% sure we're going to win. And we're going to have our freedom back.
Other members of the wedding party, like Yulia's bridesmaid Vita, are also worrying for their family in Ukraine, with Vita's brother fighting in the army.
You lose all your mind and you lose your heart. But he's telling me, Vika, don't worry, we will strong, and we at home. Is our home, is our children. We will be too strong, don't worry.
Anyone who wishes to donate to help those in Ukraine can do so via a collection box at the Blair Pancake House or via the couple's GoFundMe page. Anna Riley, GB News, Guiseley.
And may they live happily ever after.
Indeed.
Some light amidst all that gloom and darkness.
Love survives everything.
Yeah.
Look, stay with us after the break. We've got all the big sports headlines. Aidan McGee is coming up for that. But first of all, we're going to take a break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Very tight at the top of the Premier League, but advantaged Manchester City after a lucky win yesterday over their neighbours, Manchester United, lucky by 4 goals. 4 goals, 4-1. Here's Aidan McGee to talk through what happened in the match. I don't really want to talk about it, but anyway, it was humiliating, actually, for United.
Oh, without doubt. I mean, I did think at half-time they were in the game. It was 2-1, but I did think that they had a fighting chance. Don't forget, Pep Guardiola's faced, 6 home games prior to yesterday against Manchester United. He'd drawn 1 and lost 4 of them and won the other one. So it was a tricky fixture for Manchester City. It was one that was expected to have a little bit of a bearing on the title race, and it did in the sense that City pulled clear a little bit more, put some pressure on Liverpool, who won the previous day. But let's just look at Manchester United. I don't want to, intrude on personal grief too much, Eamonn, but
you are.
Yeah, I am. I mean, look, they sacked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on November the 20th. OK, they gave this guy 3 games after that before they appointed him. Now, this is what clubs do. It's quite cynical. They appoint a manager when they know they've got a kind run of fixtures. Now, they've played 18 matches, won 8, drawn 7 and lost 3. Of those 18 games, they played Crystal Palace, Young Boys, Norwich, Newcastle, Burnley, Wolves, Villa twice, Brentford, West Ham, Middlesbrough, Burnley, Southampton, Brighton, Leeds, Atletico, Watford and Manchester City. The first time they faced a team around them in the top 6, they got absolutely obliterated yesterday. Sooner or later, even if you appoint a manager and you give him an easy ride into the job, sooner or later you're going to face calibre opponents. Right. And that's what happened yesterday. And yes, they have a great record at the Etihad. What does that matter? That was last season, season before then, different manager, different players. They got absolutely humiliated yesterday. And that is why Roy Keane let fly. I know he does it from time to time, but when he's talking about players being more worried about their hair and more worried about the make of their boots and the colour of their boots and selfies and social media and what he describes as all that nonsense, I could see yesterday the United fans and even some of the players of his generation, Peter Schmeichel included, he said not good enough or don't care,
but one or the other. It is a generational thing, and I was sitting watching with a friend and we were both in that Roy Keane mode of why are they hugging each other? Why is Fernandes having this chat with De Bruyne as they're waiting to kick off and whatever? And they're all huggy, kissy, friendly. That's not what you want to see. You've lost 4-1. Just get off the pitch, go down the tunnel and kick a wall somewhere.
Sometimes it happens before the games as well. Roy Keane.
Is it a new generation thing?
Roy Keane certainly thinks so. I remember he said about a year ago his famous phrase, and this is probably what has precluded him from getting managers' jobs, because I don't think owners trust him to kind of synergise or understand the modern player. Now, that's not a criticism of Roy Keane. He expects high standards. Ask all those great players in the pantheon of United's history in that 12 years he was at Old Trafford. And don't forget, Eamonn, this is the biggest club in the world. I've been all over the world with Manchester United. If their reserve team turn up in Accra or Lagos or something like that, you'd have 40,000 people watching them. That's how big they are. They're bigger than Barcelona, Real Madrid, forget all that lot.
Yeah.
He knows what it takes to play for Manchester United. He did the business week in, week out between 1993 and 2005. And as I say, this record is lamentable because they played, I mean, the next 4 games, well, no, if you take out yesterday, Manchester City, they've got Tottenham coming up, they've got Atletico, they've got Liverpool. This is where an interim manager has to earn his corner.
And they've got Arsenal, who've got games in hand.
Arsenal got 3 games in hand. They're outside the top 4 now. Do interim managers ever work? You remember this. Alex Ferguson, Sir Alex Ferguson, the great Sir Alex Ferguson, Alexander the Great, back in 2001-2, he announces at Christmas time. He tries to force the hand of the owners to try and get him a new contract, but he says he's leaving at the end of the season. They were locked in a title race at that stage in December with Arsenal. Arsenal went there 5 months later, went to Old Trafford, stole the family silver, winning the double, unbeaten away from home all season. That was because those players, even though Alex Ferguson was in charge, those players knew that guy wasn't going to be there until the end of the season, and it's natural, it's human nature to take your foot off the gas. If these Manchester United players, some of whom I don't think are up to the mark anyway, if they're looking at Ralph Rangnick and thinking, you're not going to be there in the summer, are you really going to try a leg?
Well, a lot of them may not be there in the summer as well, we do have to say. Not to take it away from City, superb performance from them. There they are, top of the league. Liverpool biting on their heels, still getting the results. Do you think Liverpool have a chance?
I do, yeah, because I think they're hitting form. They're hitting form at the right time. I sat here many times around between Christmas and New Year, and I said the title race is over. 10, 11, 12 points, whatever it was at the time. Too much for Liverpool to reel in, one of the great sides of their generation. But I should have known better. I've seen it happen before. I've seen United relinquish leads at the top of the table. I've seen Arsenal do it. I've seen Newcastle do it. 95, 96. It does happen. Even in leagues around Europe, even in leagues below the Premier League. I've seen it happen too many times. And I underestimated Liverpool. It's going to come down, Eamonn. And there's a lot of football to be played between now and April the 9th. But it's going to come down to that showdown at the Etihad. And I tell you what, Liverpool better play a lot better than Man United did yesterday to get some kind of result and to keep things interesting.
Interesting. OK. Thanks, Aidan. Thank you very much indeed. Look, that's the back pages. We're going to talk about the front pages and everything else in between with our newspaper reviewers right after this. Don't go away.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Front pages stack up like this on a Monday morning. We begin, first of all, with the Daily Telegraph.
Pictures Ukrainian refugees running for their lives as they flee shelling in northern Kyiv. It leads with Boris Johnson's comments calling Putin barbaric.
Here's the Times, same picture, and describes the Russian advance on civilian neighbourhoods.
Front page of the Mail, and UK's defence chief says Putin's victory in Ukraine is not inevitable. Daily Star suggests Shane Warne was detoxing using a liquid diet, which may have brought about his heart attack. OK, it's time to go inside the newspapers again this morning. We're joined by the climate campaigner Amy Cameron and the former diplomat Nick Busvine. A very warm welcome back to both of you. Amy, let's start with you. We've been talking a lot about armies in the last 12 days, but the army of volunteers has surely captured the hearts of, well, the world. Tell us about what British volunteers have been doing on the border with Ukraine.
Yeah, so this is a story in the Times where one of their journalists has been encountering various British volunteers on their way to fight in Ukraine. I think this is a really interesting story. I think because on the one hand, it speaks to the huge outpouring of British support for Ukraine and how much all of us, I think, have been affected by the stories of their bravery and spirit. However, I think in this article, there is also direct reference to Liz Truss's comments last week. One of the volunteers saying that he was sort of responding to that from her. And I think it does speak to a bigger...
Just refresh our memories what that was.
So last week, Liz Truss said that she would welcome or sort of encourage British volunteers to travel, who wanted to travel to Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
She was fairly broadly sort of slapped down, I think, by other members of the government. I think Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary, has already said that he would not advise that. And I think it shows how important it is that during a time like this, our ministers speak so carefully. I actually think unusually we have seen Boris Johnson being much more careful with his language. I think he is being well advised by Ben Wallace on this. Not only, I think, is there a real danger in those with no military training, that's not helpful for people in Ukraine to be dealing with potentially injuries or even deaths from British volunteers, but also it's potentially illegal under the Terrorism Act. And I think it does muddy the water with Russia. I think if we cannot allow Russia any
moral high ground,
for them to be in a position where they may be able to claim that we are sneaking British citizens
here's
in.
a man who's had to speak very carefully throughout his life, his working life as a diplomat, as a former diplomat, now Nick Busvine. Nick, we're talking about armoury here. We're talking about Ukraine has asked for, if you can't give us a no-fly zone, give us jets to create one ourselves. This is in the Telegraph, page 9.
Yes. As you say, Eamonn, there's been a clear decision, rightly in my view, that there shouldn't be a no-fly zone, because clearly that would bring us into direct military confrontation with Russia and the associated risk of World War III. And this is clearly a sort of... What's surprising is that the Ukrainians have managed to preserve their air capability thus far, but no doubt it is being degraded by the Russians. And the proposal is to supply Soviet-era, ironically, jets, maybe from Poland, to support the Ukrainian Air Force.
Is that because their pilots in Ukraine will know how to fly these?
Exactly, Eamonn, yes. I mean, it's the same technology, same aircraft. They will have been trained on those aircraft.
Well, is it also something a little bit more subtle than that as well? Yes, they may not be able to fly the more modern American equivalent, but equally it wouldn't look so... I don't know what the word is. Putin wouldn't take kindly to seeing American jets flying over Ukraine airspace.
No, he wouldn't. But I think because events are moving so quickly, those pilots in Ukraine will be familiar with that, so they could go operational immediately. They've been trained on them. They understand their system. Speaking as a humble gliding instructor, I think that that's how it will work. And it's interesting that the Americans are offering to backfill that with some really quite heavy-duty commitment in terms of supplying F-16 aircraft to the Poles to support that program. So it could be interesting, and it's interesting to see actually from the same story that the the Russians seem to be suffering really quite significant air losses. There are claims of 88 Russian aircraft downed. And, of course, in the fog of war, one can't be confident about that. But it's really quite significant that the going appears to be tougher than maybe the Russians anticipated.
Now, here, I'm looking forward to this defence from Amy Cameron now, because we go to The Sun, page 8, and it says, angry Tory MPs have blasted a minister's claims that 2 UK fracking sites have reached the end of their useful life. Now, I say this because increasingly the tide is turning against people like you, Amy, who will say, no F word to be mentioned. But people see this crisis, they see that their energy is not secure, and they're thinking, fracking, maybe why not? Well, what's your take on this story?
So this is a story in The Sun. It's the kind of usual suspects saying that we should be pushing forward with fracking, so Steve Baker and the like. I think, first of all, this is a very misleading article in The Sun. It says that we are shutting down these useful gas sites. The gas sites which are being shut down are 2 testing sites, which Cuadrilla tried and failed to extract shale gas from because they resulted in earthquakes in the local area. So they were actually closed in 2019 because of safety concerns in the local area. So to describe these as useful fracking sites, I think, is very misleading at best. And I would disagree with you there, Eamonn. The support levels for fracking in the UK are phenomenally low. About
People who are paying £2 a gallon or a litre, as you do now, for their fuel as they fill up, will just tell you to frack off. Really? It will increasingly.
So, even Cuadrilla's bosses...
You must feel that the tide is turning on this.
I don't. So 14% of the public support fracking. I think I've got more popularity with the GBNews audience than that.
Ask them, when was that taken?
Even Cuadrilla's bosses and Kwasi Kwarteng, the business secretary, will tell you that fracking will have no impact on cost of energy in the UK. The extent to which it would have any useful benefit on supply is also absolutely marginal. We don't have a supply issue in the UK, we have a cost issue in the UK. At the moment, we actually still export huge amounts of our oil, for example. So at best case scenario, new fracking wells would take around 6 years to be usefully producing. That is not a solution to the problem we're currently in right now.
What would be quicker?
Energy efficiency would be what I would push for. So had Cameron government not got rid of the green crap, we would already not need to use Russian gas. So improving energy efficiency in homes, just from a band D to a band C, if you're familiar with that when you're looking at buying a house, would have already knocked off 7% of our gas requirements. That's almost double what we import from Russia.
Can I just bring in the whole Ukraine crisis? I know we're talking about fracking in the UK, but I thought it was really interesting. Lots of people last week started talking about turning their thermostats down just a degree to try and stop funding the Putin war machine, because if you stop in Europe mainly, because obviously they import more of that gas. I do think that's a really interesting byproduct of this whole crisis, that people might start to think about using less, consuming less, rather than trying to turn off the taps.
If I said to you right now, let's turn the studio thermostat down another 1 degree.
It's already much colder than your average home in here,
freezing.
let me tell you.
It's freezing.
Yeah, no,
so what I'm trying to say is, I sat in a cold house yesterday watching football. And it went into my bones.
Yeah, but all of us remember that from our childhoods, don't we, being cold? I mean, isn't that just something that we have to perhaps re-embrace as the world's facing a crisis?
But that's the problem in the UK. It comes back to the energy efficiency thing. So we actually have the coldest, leakiest homes in Europe, in the UK, because we've done such an abysmal job on insulation, on retrofitting, on improving the standard of homes. So while I think, again, it's one of those issues where the intention is good, far too many people in the UK are already struggling to pay their heating bills.
Guys, I'd like to reflect this today. Just genuinely think what you're thinking about this, watching at home. We can do all the talk. You've got to live through it. Do you want to put on another jumper? Do you want to turn up your thermostat? Do you want to frack now? Do you want to pay more for your petrol and whatever? Or you don't, and you think that we should be boycotting Russia and we should be thinking of the planet. At GB News, tweet us today at GB News, and we'll try and reflect that later on.
Yeah, Amy Cameron, Nick Buswell, we have to leave it there. We will be back with you at around 8:30. But now we will turn to Jonathan Reynolds, who joins us to talk about this economic crime bill, which will be going through Parliament today. Very good morning to you. Of course, the Shadow Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Look, let's talk first of all then. I don't know if you could hear what we were just discussing in the papers. Your take on any of that, first of all?
Yes, the conversation about energy you were just having, I mean, the cost of living was already a serious issue in the UK, and clearly what we are seeing this morning are projections of it being even worse. Now, we can't affect some of those global commodity prices, but the government can take action to assist people, and that is what the priority has got to be. You're absolutely right on the points you're raising on energy efficiency. There are huge gains that could be had in the UK by addressing not just the efficiency of the housing stock, but things like the controls, the thermostats, the modern technology that sits behind that. And if we could get more of that out, we've relied too much on energy companies getting those out to customers, and of course that's not the kind of systematic street-by-street approach that I think the country really needs.
Where does the country really need fracking? Where do you stand on fracking?
No, not convinced by the fracking arguments. I'm afraid I'm going to have to agree with some government ministers on this and say that you couldn't affect the price of gas by fracking, because that's a commodity market where the price is set by that market. Now, you would have more security of supply by more domestic supply, but that isn't the challenge. It's the price of gas which is the main challenge to us. And of course, if you look at what they were able to do in America, you couldn't replicate that here because the geography is different, the environmental regulation is different, and of course, more than anything else, in the northwest of England where I live, people just didn't want it. They didn't want the consequences of it, and they weren't happy with what was going on. So even if you got over those issues, and I don't think you would, you'd be looking at several years before you had any meaningful impact on energy markets in the UK.
Being said, as we move to impose more sanctions on Russia, people can expect to see their bills going up. It is just the harsh reality of the current situation. I just want to know your take on this economic crime bill. This is the one that is taking a look at how best to sanction oligarchs in this country, try to get our hands on their so-called dirty money. Lots of criticisms of the timescapes involved in all of that. What's your view on what's going before Parliament today?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we support the bill and we will help it get through Parliament. The government have moved quite a lot in our direction, but the big difference of view, as you've correctly said, is at the minute around the timescale for implementation of some of the measures. So the crucial measure today is a register of who really owns property in the UK. So if a foreign-owned company owned a piece of property in the UK, that's what appeared on land registry, but it wouldn't tell you who really owned that company, and that's what we need to get to the bottom of. The government originally had a timescale of 18 months. They brought that down to 6 months. We want it in days, not months. We want 28 days to be the time frame for implementation. And the background to that is because this was a measure first promised by the Prime Minister, by David Cameron when he was Prime Minister in 2016. So people have known this is coming. It's stalled for a long period of time. We need to take action now. It's not just about oligarchs, it's about money launderers, it's about tax evaders. I want to find out what is really going on, where the treasure is hidden, and we're able to do that if we act quickly. That's what we want to see today.
Well, Shadow Secretary, I think it'd be very hard to argue against you what you're proposing in terms of a time scale. But also, why on earth this hasn't been done before? That's the annoying thing. And yet, you look at someone, if Roman Abramovich is a person of interest, why are we allowing him to tout his biggest asset, Chelsea Football Club, on the market for billions, let him take his money and get out of here?
Well, I think you're absolutely right on both accounts. I mean, first of all, the legislation we're talking about, emergency legislation today, it should have been up and running on the previous timescale last year. So we should already have this. We should already know where it is. And of course, you're right to say when you look at people in terms of their assets, the ones that are getting the attention are the ones where we know what their assets are. It's yachts, it's football clubs. But what's hiding in plain sight around us here in London? Well, actually, that's what we need to know too. And I think because of the lack of transparency, the risk is that people have put their money into certain things, and they're going to realise those assets, take the money, be able to do that. That is a huge problem, and there are measures, again, other amendments from MPs across Parliament today that would stop that happening. So let's hope we see some real progress today in Parliament. It should already be the case. You're absolutely right to say that we already have this. We can maybe put some of that right today.
I just want to ask you about those people at the opposite end of the spectrum to these oligarchs who are, of course, filthy rich, and that is, of course, those refugees fleeing from war, often only with the possessions that they could carry. Reports as of yesterday, only 50 visas have been granted here in the UK to people who've applied online. Over 10,000 have applied for the family scheme. Is that enough? Are we going fast enough on this?
No, I mean, to see people who have got to Calais being turned away by UK border force when they've got family here, when the government say they should be able to come here. That is not good enough. What is clearly required is an emergency protection visa that sweeps away a lot of the bureaucracy you reasonably have behind a normal visa request, that recognises the emergency situation that people are in. I think you need some way to know who's coming to this country, because I think in the past that hasn't been done particularly well, and these are people who will need support, especially children who fled a war zone. So we need to know who's coming and give them the support that's required, but there's got to be an emergency regime for that. Surely everyone can see this is not like a normal visa request immigration situation. These are people fleeing a war zone, and we should be responding to those people accordingly.
Jonathan Reynolds, thank you very much indeed. He is the Shadow Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
OK, it is time now for On Your Doorstep.
And the doorstep is in Scotland today. Our Scotland reporter, Davy Donaldson, is in Bo'ness. It's in West Lothian. Davy, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Eamonn. Yeah, we're in Bo'ness, as you say, in West Lothian. On your doorstep. Couldn't be more on your doorstep, because this is where I live. So, yeah, just going to go down the street here and see if we can bang on a few doors. So, just follow me down here, because I think maybe person here that wants to speak to us. Yeah, pretty old town, Bo'ness, famous for its port. Let's come through this way and see who we can have a word with. And the great thing about On Your Doorstep is that you don't know who you're going to speak to. You don't know who's going to be having a bit of toast. You don't know who's available. Well, we need to go up the stairs here, I think. Follow me through here.
Link
there busy in here today.
On that doorstep. We'll try and re-establish that link with Davey and get back to him just as soon as we can. But in the meantime, we will take a little break and have a look at your forecast for Monday. Well, looking ahead to today's weather, the UK is looking fine and dry for many, with sunny spells, though windier than over the weekend. Let's take a look at the details.
Beginning with the southwest, it's and most of us will see some sunny breaks. The brisk winds will make it feel very chilly, though.
Let's move to the southeast, and across London there'll be more sunshine with largely clear blue skies. Chilly here, highs are just 6 or 7 Celsius.
Breezy but dry across Wales, perhaps not as much sunshine as over the weekend. Chillier, especially with the wind.
That's also how it's looking as we head towards the Midlands. A dry morning and afternoon with some decent sunny breaks. Temperatures a little below average, highs of 8 at best.
Cloudier in the northeast of England. There will be some sunshine breaking through. Temperatures will be a little down on average for early spring.
Plenty of sunshine across Scotland this lunchtime. Winds will be mostly light, though out towards the west it'll be quite windy at times, adding to the chilly feel.
Northern Ireland again bathed in sunshine, barely a cloud in the sky, a touch chillier than over the weekend and feeling cold with the brisk wind.
A little change in the weather this afternoon, though thick cloud will push in from the south later, and that is how the weather is shaping up for you on this Monday.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
Right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Mark White, here on GB News. For more than 2 decades, I've been at the sharp end of reporting crime and security at home and abroad. From the scourge of terrorism to the fight against violent crime and the deepening small boats crisis in the Channel, they're issues you rightly care about, and so do I. As GB News Home and Security Editor, my focus will be on the stories that matter to you.
The Prime Minister warns of even darker days ahead amid reports of a renewed Russian assault on Kyiv.
Good morning. It is 8 o'clock on Monday, the 7th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Around the world on both your TV, your radio, we're also online, we should say. And here's what's leading the news this morning.
Boris Johnson will meet with his Canadian and Dutch counterparts today to try and keep up international pressure on Russia over its continued invasion of Ukraine.
The economic crime bill will be sped through Parliament, but opponents say it's too little, too late to clamp down on oligarch dirty money.
It comes after last night's powerful address by the Ukrainian President Zelensky, in which he called on the West to do more and promised we will punish everyone who committed atrocities in this war on our land.
And with over 1 million refugees crossing into Poland, our reporter is there for you this morning.
Good morning from the Dorhusk border. It is freezing cold. We will be speaking to some of the Ukrainian refugees who are fleeing conflict in their country and heading for Poland and beyond.
Thank you, Paul. You can join in any discussions by emailing gbviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at gbnews.
Russia says, sorry, I was going to kick off there. Russia says corridors in Kyiv, Mariupol, Kharkiv and Sumy will be open today at the request of the French President Emmanuel Macron. It comes after 2 failed attempts over the weekend.
OK, let's get an update on what happened over the weekend militarily. Robert Fox, who's a defence editor with the Evening Standard, is here. They're saying the Russian advance they keep saying stalled, but they're making inroads, Robert.
They've committed 90% of all that force that was sitting around for a few months,
a few weeks, and he ain't got much reserve. I know that they say that every week is a crucial week. If he doesn't do it this week, it's going to take months. And I think that there are problems of command and control. It's a very posh way of people not obeying orders or orders not being given. The tactic, they thought there were going to be almost lightning, I daren't say surgical strikes into centres like Kiev particularly and Kharkiv. It hasn't happened.
But why hasn't it happened? I mean, surely that's relatively easy to do.
Oh, really?
No, but if you're programming a computer and you're pointing at a target...
It doesn't work like that.
Why?
Terrain. And very narrow roads and a lot of quite old-fashioned equipment and tactics. What they're trying to do with Kiev is close the circle. You're quite right. In nearly 10 days now, they haven't closed the circle, and they're committing about between a quarter and a third of their effort there. And the other thing, which is absolutely a dead giveaway, is that they're not overusing air. What are we hearing? These poor old these refugees, poor young, being smashed up with indiscriminate artillery. Two things. They're not using precision air attack, and they're not using trained infantry on the ground, because I think it's beginning to show they daren't do the latter.
Why?
Because of discipline and because young Russian soldiers, part of them are for hire, they're professional soldiers, but quite a large part are still conscripts. Some will have been told that they were going on exercise, and they will find that they are fighting their cousins. And people say, oh, you know, one of the commentaries is, well, they'll get ruthless as they did in Aleppo and in Grozny, when the Russians really went for broke in Syria and in the two wars in Chechnya. No, it's not the same. It's much too close. It's much too close in every sense to home.
So, Robert, you kind of agree then with Admiral Sir Tony Radkin. He's the Defence Chief of Staff, who's saying that...
Who am I to disagree with him?
Well, I mean, he's saying, isn't he, that the Russian forces have been, to quote, decimated in the last 12 days or so. That being said, Putin's spoken to President Erdogan of Turkey over the weekend, said he absolutely is determined to take Kyiv. He's got the stomach for the long haul. Boris Johnson today saying dark days yet to come. And he's right, isn't he? The Kyiv is going to be his ultimate prize, and he's not going to stop until he gets it.
Well, he doesn't win the country unless he gets Kyiv. No, it is part of, sorry, psychobabble, it's the psychodrama of Putin. Putin, we now realise, has been obsessed with Kyiv above all, and Ukraine, because Kiev is a great founding capital of the culture and literature and spiritual life of that area, which means more and more to Putin and his family, such that it is. And so he's fixated on this. Who am I to disagree with Tony Radkin? From what I am reading, and I've had some very elaborate reports, I think it's something slightly different. The Russian lineup is becoming frayed in a way that they didn't expect. The thing that we're not hearing and we're not seeing, and they haven't got too much of it, but those weapons that were supplied to the Ukrainians, the over-the-shoulder LAW anti-tank weapons and the Stingers, really have had an effect, because one thing that's happening that British and American analysis is showing, they're not bringing the command forward, and you need to bring a lot of the command to look down on the ground in the air. They don't come forward with command helicopters, and there is not too much fixed-wing aircraft. Occasionally they do appear and they do bomb, but it's Stalingrad tactics, and it's the terrible battles that took place in '43 across Ukraine. Ukraine took 44% of all the Soviet Union casualties in mainland Europe in the Second World War, and it's a punch bowl yet again.
We talk a lot about Kiev. What about Odessa? And why is it so important? Why would this be so crucial, particularly in this week or 10 days ahead?
It's critical because that way you shut off 3/4 of the commercial maritime trade.
So this is in the south of Ukraine.
And it's going to be very interesting should Putin try, and he's cynical enough, to try and make Ukraine, if he can't get the whole thing, he's going to make it totally landlocked. Then it blows up in his face, because if it becomes totally landlocked, it will become more and more looking to the western border, because the way we're seeing at the moment, and I'm just guessing, they're beginning to realise they're not going to get the west of the country. They just don't have the forces, Eamonn.
Yeah,
but
they've got the north, the south.
Not really, because
east.
they've not occupied yet. This is the message I'm getting from Mariupol, from Kherson, where the fighting has been going on for days and days and days. And unless they bring the mercenaries in, they brought in Wagner Group. They've been in, by the way, and they pulled out from the Kharkiv
let's talk
battle.
about these mercenaries.
let's
there's
explain
lots
to
in the
people
press
who
this
they are
morning.
and what they are.
The mercenaries are being brought in not just to decapitate Zelensky, which would obviously help with capturing
I hate
Kyiv.
that term. That means sounds as if they're going to behead the
Okay,
man.
sorry,
Yeah, but they're not up to the job either. They've got a very, very spotty past. They're gangsters. They're hired. They're guns for hire, and they were originally founded by a man called Yevgeny Prigozhin, who had the title, very attractively, of being Putin's cook, because he started the Concord Catering Agency when the gang got together round the mayor of Petersburg immediately in the 2 or 3, 4 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall. It is gangster politics. I mean, you will hear that phrase, and Karen Pierce, our ambassador in Washington, uses it very effectively, but it is true. And the gang, and this is now where the focus also must be, no, they're all in it together, because if one falls, Putin falls, the whole lot, the whole house comes down.
Gosh. Fascinating. Robert, got to leave it there. Robert Fox, defence editor of the Evening Standard. Thanks for your take on things. We're now going to have a look at the effect of all of this, because over 1 million refugees from Ukraine have crossed the border into Poland.
Yeah, the United Nations Refugee Agency say this is the fastest growing crisis in Europe since World War II. Let's bring in our national reporter, Paul Hawkins, who is out and about on the border this morning. I believe, Paul, you're at a registration centre or nearby one for us?
No, I'm still at the border, still at the Dorohska crossing, about 350 kilometres, 400 kilometres in fact, from Kyiv. We're still here at the moment. We will be heading to a registration centre later on. I just wanted to actually give you an idea of the kind of lengths that some people are going to in terms of coming here to the border with Ukraine, to help the people that are coming across. We can speak now to Marco and Kim, who've come from Berlin. They're not part of any organisation, but you've decided to be here to help the people that are coming across. Why is that, Marco?
We saw the news, we saw people suffering, and we saw it's close to home. It's only 800 kilometers from here. It's a 10-hour ride. And we just decided 3 days ago, just let's fill up the RV and come here, help.
Yeah. Kim, just tell us the kind of... well, first of all, how are you helping the people that are coming across the border? What sort of things are you giving them?
Well, first of all, warm drinks and food, soup we prepared the last days. It's actually drinks that they need, and everything else we're given from all the other people. So we're given goods like food and hygiene and cats and dog food, and we give them everything that they need.
Yeah, what sort of things have you seen over the weekend?
Lots of suffering and happiness. People coming here, meeting parents and relatives, and being happy to have come out of this tragedy which is happening just across the border here. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to see that you function somehow, you work with it, and then you see a little scene or a little girl, just you gave her something like a puppet or something, and she just hugs you, and then that was it. That was it for me yesterday.
Yeah, the same for me, actually. It's these small moments. We just do whatever we can to help to get into the buses that are packed and give them all the goods that we have. And just a woman grabbing my hand when I wanted to leave and just saying thank you with all her heart.
Yeah,
and,
there's a look of exhaustion when they come across. They kind of go like this because they've kind of held it together for so long.
Yes.
They've still got an incredibly long journey to go for many of them, haven't they?
Yeah, and we just said they must be freezing. They must be so tired, so exhausted. Coming here in the morning, they've probably stood there for hours and hours on end. During the night, and we try to give them what they need. Some smile, some Yeah.
And I mean, you guys are, you know, you've got regular jobs as well. How are you fitting in this around them? Are your employers like okay with you doing this?
Yeah. I told my boss, and he was just go. Yeah.
Same with me. On Friday I could leave. I didn't have to work at school, and I have 2 days off. So actually we would like to stay longer. We thought even yesterday in the evening, how can we leave here? The only good feeling is then when we leave the spot, another organization will come in and probably set up a humanitarian corridor, the World Central Kitchen. So there's somebody else helping. That's the only thing that keeps us up. But otherwise, we don't want to think of leaving.
Yeah, and it seems to be, I mean, at the moment it's fairly quiet, but then as the day moves on, more and more come across the border.
Yes, 2 days ago it was actually all day long. There were buses and people coming. Yesterday it was more quiet, but in the evening they came. Then the buses were filled. We don't know why. There were some problems at the borders yesterday, being closed, regulations changing. But now it's quiet. Yesterday it was about 11 when the people came. Yeah.
Yeah, we noticed that, and we should add, just finally, when you do pack up and leave here, you're not just taking some of the stuff with you. You're going to take some people home with you.
Yes.
Exactly. We're planning on taking at least 4 people. That's what we're allowed to do, but
we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, how will you decide who to take?
We won't. We will go to the reception center and just register officially that we want to take somebody to Berlin, and they will tell us when there's a family that wants to go. And on the other hand, we also have this contact to Taxi Service for Peace. That's a Berlin organization, also private, and we are in this Facebook group, and they always tell us when there's somebody to go to Warsaw or someone, and we just take everybody.
And they'll stay with you at your place?
We're actually responsible for them until they have a place to stay, so if we don't find another place, they definitely stay with us. We already told the children at home, but we have a friend that can take a mother and a child already, and we'll see. We'll definitely take care of them until this.
You're doing incredible work. So, we'll leave you to it, but thank you for speaking to us. Really appreciate it. So, cameraman Jim just stumbling over a box of, I think it's dog food there. But there you go. So, Kim and Marco, kind of, you know, so many people like that who've come here of their own accord, doing their own thing without any support from any sort of organisation. Gives you an idea of the kind of the welcome that Ukrainians are getting, not just from people here in Poland, but from right across Europe.
They say, isn't it, Paul, that every action has an opposite and equal reaction, and we're seeing that for all the evil and the inhumanity that's being poured on Ukraine. We're seeing amazing acts of kindness and goodness from people like Kim and Marco. Thanks for bringing us that. I can see it's beginning to snow there, Paul, and that really hammering home the horrible conditions for people crossing the border as well.
Yeah, really, that is a very good point. It is so cold here. It is absolutely, until you actually go back into the warmth, you don't realise how utterly exhausting being that cold is. And when you've had to trek, some people have trekked across from one side of Ukraine to the other to get here. Ukraine's about the size of France, so trekking across that when you're not sure what mode of transport you're going to use, and you're also worried about Russians roaming around the countryside. It's a really long, difficult journey, and probably the other thing you have to factor into this is that the decision-making time you have when you leave, how you leave, where you're going to get to, is very small. At the registration centre, as we'll show you later, when you get there, someone shouts out there's a bus to Germany and there's a bus to Sweden, they're going in 5 minutes, and you have to make that decision, that life-changing decision, potentially, about where you're going to end up in about 5 minutes. Should I go to Germany or should I go to Sweden? What's happening there? Do I speak the language? And then you make that decision in literally a couple of minutes, and that's your plan for the rest of your life. These are decisions that normally we would take, you know, days to research, maybe even weeks, and have lots of discussions. These people have to make that decision in a couple of minutes.
To be careful as well not to have, as the Prime Minister described it, creeping normalisation of seeing these pictures, hearing these stories. We can't get used to it. We can't think that this is acceptable. Truly terrible, harrowing stories you're telling us, Paul. Thank you very much.
No, we're not finished.
Oh.
Paul, I was just going to say, people watching what you do out there, we've got a guy coming in very shortly. He's in about 10 minutes' time, a guy called Arthur Smith, and basically he's bought a school bus. He's bought a school bus and he's going to renovate this bus and he's going to fill it full of stuff that he thinks the people that you're talking to there need at that moment in time at those borders. But let me ask you, as a dad, Paul, I mean, as a human being, what effect is this having on you? What do you see there? You know, the parts that are not in your reports, what effect has this had on you?
Yeah, well, it's heart. There's only two ways. The simplest way to put it is it's heartbreaking and it's heartwarming. Simultaneously, I've switched between those two positions because you see you see the best in people, and you see the warmth and the outpouring, the welcomes, the facilities that are laid on. There is no limit to how far so many people will go to help someone who they've never met before, but they understand their situation, they understand how they're feeling. So that's really heartwarming. And then you see people kind of breaking down. You see families split here. They've come to, you know, at these border crossings, at the registration centres, you see grandmothers leaving their granddaughters who then go back into Ukraine to carry on the fighting. You see families split up and you see families come together, and it is really heartbreaking. We were talking to a woman who spoke no English yesterday, 86-year-old Valentina. She was just talking in a very matter-of-fact way about how she'd come in a wheelchair with her granddaughter and her son across the border, and then at the end I said, through our translator, what do you make of the situation in your country? And she just broke down. She just broke down in tears, and she couldn't really talk anymore. And it's really, really heartbreaking. And you kind of flip between these two states all the time. The children, when you see the children and the effect it's going to have on them psychologically for the rest of their lives, and the way parents are trying to explain what's happening, you know, it is really difficult. It's a massive challenge.
Keep on doing the job, Paul. Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
So we now get a better understanding of the conditions, of the temperature there, of how he feels as a father out there as well. And I know a lot of this gets you down, watching and listening, because you just feel there's nothing you can do about it. But as we say, there are people who will try and do something, and we're going to be talking to one of those people later on in the programme, Arthur Smith, who's bought himself a bus. We'll tell you more about that. The time, 18 minutes past 8.
Colonel Hamish de Bretton-Gordon is joining us next. He's, of course, the former UK commander and NATO chemical, biological and nuclear forces expert. Very good morning to you. I want to start by talking about the nuclear threat because, of course, on Friday night we saw the shocking scenes when that power plant was seized by the Russians. I'm reading reports this morning that those Ukrainian operators running Chernobyl nuclear power station are only getting one meal a day, but making hugely significant decisions every hour of the day for the whole of the world. How worrying is the nuclear situation with these power plants?
Well, I think there are two things to it. First of all, attacking the power plants is incredibly reckless. Although we appear to have got away with it this time, a stray shell or something which might not actually hit the reactors, but if the cooling system is taken out, then the fuel rods that must be cool can then ignite and explode. Then you've got a nuclear explosion, and you've got something like Chernobyl in 1986, with contamination spread all across Europe, including to the UK. In fact, North Wales, you couldn't eat some sheep in North Wales for 5 or 6 years after the attack because of the contamination. So very, very reckless indeed. The other side to it, of course, is that Putin has been threatening to use nuclear weapons. I think, first of all, to terrify us, all us in the international community. So we will try and get our leaders to capitulate. And secondly, of course, he's also threatened to use tactical and nuclear battlefield weapons against civilians in Ukraine to terrify them into surrender. And it's, in a certain way, it's the playbook that he's used in Syria, where I have been up close to the Russians for the last 6 years. This attacking civilians. We were very interesting piece by Robert Fox just there about precision weapons that we haven't seen, probably because they're expensive and the Russians are not very good at it, and it's much easier just to drop lots of explosives on civilians in humanitarian corridors, as they did in Syria. So that is a real concern. And the nuclear piece, is almost unbelievable. But Putin has made some very odd decisions in the last few weeks that leads us to believe that he is somebody we must tread very carefully with.
Would include helping with humanitarian aid, being involved in airdrops. You talked about those humanitarian corridors. For what they are worth, they certainly haven't been honoured so far. Is it beyond the pale for the West, for NATO, to be involved in humanitarian airdrops?
Well, the no-fly zone and flying aircraft over Ukraine is a really tough issue at the moment. And I agree with the Chief of the Defence Staff over the weekend that, to get British aircraft over Ukraine airspace could potentially be a disaster. And of course, Putin has said that that would be an act of war. And we must avoid direct conflict with Putin, as much as possible. That would be a disaster. Humanitarian corridors, again, yes, we must get engaged. We must help the UN and others. Whether the UN could fly aircraft and drop aid like they have done in Syria, frequently in contested airspace, I think that's something that really needs to be investigated much more clearly, because that's the only way aid's going to get there. But I'm hugely concerned because in Syria, just because vehicles had a UN badge on them, it didn't stop the Russians attacking them. And in fact, on the corridor into Aleppo in December 2016, that's exactly what happened. I'm afraid this is a dreadful war. Putin does not seem to be affected by the Geneva Convention and doesn't seem to care about the war crimes he's committing. So that is a really difficult adversary to follow. But again, Robert Fox, who was on earlier, talking about the state of the Russian military, I think this is their weakness. This is where potentially the Russians are going to fail, because I also commanded the 1st Royal Tank Regiment, so I know a bit about tanks and armour, and what I'm seeing on the ground from the Russians is not very good, and the conscripts and the morale is not good. Once they get into the towns and cities of Kiev, where the fighting will be horrendous and potentially massive casualties on both sides, those young Russian soldiers, I think, are going to be in a lot of trouble. And I think Putin probably knows that. So I think there must be a window of opportunity to push home that ceasefire and try and find some sort of peace before we get a Stalingrad-type siege in Kiev and other cities in Ukraine, which could kill tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people.
Colonel, thanks for your analysis. Got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. We will take a break. After that, we've got a man with a very ordinary name. His name is Arthur Smith, but he's got an extraordinary idea. Hear all about it after this. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
OK, it's 8:26. Let's bring you up to date with all the latest headlines. And the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, has said that over 10,000 people have applied for the UK's formal Ukraine family scheme since it was launched on Friday. Only around 50 visas, though, have been granted by the Home Office as of yesterday morning.
More than £100 million has been raised in aid for Ukrainians by the British public. The Disasters Emergency Committee said that is the equivalent of more than £1 million an hour since the appeal was launched.
KPMG and PricewaterhouseCoopers have announced they'll no longer operate in Russia. It's part of a growing exodus of organisations terminating relationships with Moscow over the invasion of Ukraine. American Express and Netflix have also suspended operations.
A new code of practice aims to stop universities from offering students a place regardless of A-level grades if they make the university their firm first choice. Universities UK says so-called conditional, unconditional offers could demotivate students from fulfilling their potential.
Around 90,000 children in England have had lessons to brush up on their speech skills following concerns they'd suffered due to COVID. More than two-thirds of primary schools have signed up for targeted language support since August 2020.
43% of girls who consider themselves sporty lose interest after primary school, a new report suggests. The charity Women in Sport surveyed over 4,000 teenagers and found that a fear of feeling judged and a dislike of being watched were just some of the reasons preventing them from taking part.
Now, one Kent-based mechanic's promised to drive a bus to Kyiv to save orphans at risk from being injured or killed.
He's Arthur Smith. He's in the studio now, and he will take a group of NHS workers, former army medics, on this rescue mission along with him. And he's here. I don't know if you came in a bus today, did you?
No.
In the studio. So get this right. You spent how much on a bus?
2,500.
And are you sure it's going to get there?
It's on its way. It's already in Poland.
What did you have to do, right? You get a £2,500 bus, you load it up with people and resources and whatever. Look at that. You've obviously, painted it as well.
Yeah.
Anything else you had to do?
A bit of wiring needed doing to it. It was a school bus. It was literally still warm when we got it from having done the school run in the morning.
Gosh.
It went straight from where we picked it up to the sign shop, and it was liveried up. Had a diesel heater installed for when it's on standby. Some blue lights fitted for when it's in Ukraine for evacuation.
Right, so this is the plan. You're not just going to the border, you're planning to go into a war zone, having no military experience. There's a convoy, the bus is leading a bunch of ambulances as well, and you want specifically to go and help a group of orphans that have been in trouble in recent weeks?
The initial task is to take these orphans away from a place near Kiev to the Polish border. And then once that's done, it'll be used to take other refugees out. Depending on the situation, the bus's seats can be easily removed for it to be used as a hospital. And we've also got other vehicles out there, ambulances, ex-NHS ambulances. The coach went out full of medics and NHS staff, which is really useful, obviously, once they're out there.
Right. You are an amazing guy, Arthur Smith. Very ordinary name, very extraordinary ambitions and dreams here. You're in your early 20s. What are you by profession? You're a mechanic?
Mechanic and bus driver.
Mechanic and a bus driver by profession. Mm-hmm. Just tell me the moment that you thought, I've got to do something about this, I've got to be involved.
I was watching the news, I was listening to Boris Johnson's speech, and I just thought, this isn't enough. Someone needs to do something properly, and, no arming and ahhing, it just needs to be done.
Have you ever done anything like this before?
No.
Have you got a background in doing sort of big humanitarian work, or were you just specifically really moved? And was it the children in Kiev specifically that spoke to you as well? Or?
I think because I saw what should be happening and what isn't happening, and how close they really are. I mean, the drive isn't that long. And the
How long?
In a bus, it's about 25 hours. In a car, maybe 17, 18. And if you've got 2 drivers, then you can get there pretty quick. And with a coach, you can take so many things in the holds. Also, so many, 57 paramedics.
Look, here's where I really admire you. Like all of us, we say it's awful, it's terrible. It actually depresses us. We might give a few quid, but you've other things to do in your life.
Yeah, trying to run a business at the same time, it's very difficult.
Will you ask anybody to do that? A lot of people would find excuses not to do it. Why are you different?
I don't know. I really don't know. I haven't thought about that. Like I said, I've got a license to be able to drive a vehicle of that size, and I can, and I've got the time to do it, and the resources to be able to get what I need.
But you need 200 orphans, right, when you get into Ukraine. What makes you think, Arthur, that the authorities or whoever is in charge, whatever infrastructure still exists, are going to say to you, yeah, here, have these children?
Well, I'd like to hope that having a bus liveried up with, paramedics that have, certified identification and stuff, that we're trying to, we're here on a humanitarian mission. We're not here to cause any issues. We just want to get people out of the country to where they need to be. Unfortunately, orphanages, there's a blind children's hospital these places are being forgotten about. Everyone's just concentrating on the main thing, people from cities evacuating. But what about the people that can't evacuate, that don't have transport?
And do you know what ages these orphans are and what sort of needs they have? I mean, I saw pictures when I was reading about your story, which was covered in the Sunday Times yesterday, pictures of incubators and things. And were we talking about babies, or are we talking about children of all different ages?
We're talking newborn up to 18, 19. There's quite a big age range.
Where are you from, Arthur Smith?
Brighton.
Right. What do your friends and family think about this, or your neighbours? I reckon a few of them must be saying, brilliant, Arthur, but rather you than me.
A lot of people are saying that. A lot of people are saying, why don't you just give the money to the Red Cross? A lot of people are saying, well done, go out there, come back.
I think you're exceptional. I think you're what makes Britain great. When we talk about GB News and GB Views, I mean, it's great Britons like you, Arthur Smith, that just absolutely incredible. If people want to support you in any way, what can they do? Who are you? What's your organisation? How do they get in touch?
Well, we are roadtoukraine.com.
Give me that again.
Roadtoukraine.
Roadtoukraine.com, yeah.
Our company is Patrol. We're providing mechanical support on the way out. Our vehicles are going out to support any vehicles, for breakdowns, things like that. We are looking for supplies, medical supplies mainly. We're looking for volunteer paramedics, doctors, nurses, anyone who's willing to go to either the border or...
When you say medical supplies, how specific or how general would that be?
We're talking medical equipment, so trauma kits. Even bandages is great. Anything that can help anyone who's been injured. And other than that, obviously, we're looking for donations of blankets, warm clothing, especially now, and children's nappies.
Arthur, whilst you're speaking, we're looking at pictures at the same time, live, coming to us from the border with Romania and Ukraine. And we just a moment ago saw a little newborn baby wrapped up in blankets in the snow. And I was reading over the weekend, if anyone asked themselves, what would they have done during the Holocaust? What would they have done during the civil rights movement? What would they have done during slavery? Now is the moment to ask yourself what you would have done, because you're doing it. And I think, Arthur, you can be very proud of what you're doing.
Yeah, well done, Arthur. Could I shake your hand?
Thank you very much.
Good man. Excellent stuff. Just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
If there were more Arthurs in the world, that's the point. Absolutely brilliant. OK, the time now, it's 25 to 9. Thanks for watching and listening to us. As Eamonn and Isabel here on GB News at breakfast. The morning newspapers, we're going to go through those after the break. Please don't go away. GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, it's Monday morning. Your front pages of your newspapers look like this, sadly, all a theme of Ukraine. Telegraph, first of all, and you'll see this common pictures of refugees running for their lives. They flee shelling. This is in northern Kyiv, and also has Boris Johnson's comments calling President Putin barbaric.
Yeah, it's the same story for the Times this morning, describing the Russian advance on civilian neighbourhoods.
Front page of the Daily Mail, the UK's defence chief, the head of defence in Britain, says that war with Ukraine, or Putin's victory in Ukraine, is not inevitable.
Daily Star is suggesting that Shane Warne was detoxing using a liquid diet when he had a heart attack in Thailand.
Inside those papers, let's talk to Amy Cameron and Nick Busvine, who is a former diplomat. And Nick, it's you we're going to start with, and it's the Economic Crime Bill. It's reported in all the newspapers. We'll be seeing it debated or passed in Parliament later today. You go to the eye, page 14. What have you got to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're seeing a blizzard of sanctions coming in from the US, from the EU, from the UK, and part of that is the Economic Crimes Bill, which is proposing to force property owners, oligarchs, to declare their ownership of property in the UK within an 18-month period. Now, the Labour Party are pushing for that period to be cut to 28 days on the grounds that 18 months will give people more than enough time to sell up and leave. I mean, I think the sort of backdrop to this is that the sanctions regime, and I look at this professionally, is going to become incredibly complex, and private sector companies are going to be utterly baffled as to who they can do business with, what they can do, what they can't do. I mean, I welcome in many ways the drive for transparency, because I'm afraid quite a lot of money is laundered through London, and it's very important for people, like whether it's banks, financial institutions, investors, to understand, or ordinary people to understand where the money comes from, the legitimacy of origins of wealth, or to understand, the exact impact and reach of sanctions.
I think you're right, though. I think it's so interesting sort of talking about the consequences of these sanctions just on business in London, I suppose any of the financial centres, really. I was speaking to a lawyer friend over the weekend who said that if you owe money to a Russian bank that is being sanctioned, you still have to legally pay that money, for whatever reason it may be, that you have to do a transaction. But, of course, that's being blocked by SWIFT in many cases or by the sanctions themselves. And so people having to set up separate accounts to make these payments until such time as those sanctions are lifted. And as far as he was concerned, the whole of London's just in a complete meltdown at the moment, trying to sort all of this out.
Isabel, I think you're right. I think, well, it all makes work for the lawyers to do, of course. Yeah. But this is going to become an incredibly complicated issue for ordinary businesses to get their heads round, because it may be that they're dealing with a company that isn't in Russia, but for all they know has strong links to sanctioned entities, and it's going to be a really tricky business to get their heads round it and to behave in a legitimate and proper way.
I'll tell you what, I mean, the mood of today's society, they're well used to a cancel culture. Do you think this is now would be more second nature to them to get involved in all of that?
Well, I'm not a great fan of cancel culture usually, but I mean, I think in sanctions terms, the knee-jerk response of people is, I'm just not going to touch this, which is why I think people aren't buying Russian oil on the international markets right now, not because it's sanctioned yet, but because they fear it might be soon. So these things have a profound impact, and properly handled.
So should we have a conscience then? I'll put this one to Amy. So, okay, one of our, not to name any service station in particular, but, our petrol stations, they buy this Russian oil now and they keep it for future date, whatever, at a good price. Should we have a conscience about where we buy our oil? I mean, we worry about where our avocados are sourced from or things like that. Should we worry about oil in the same way?
Absolutely. I think the oil and gas industry is far too vulnerable to propping up dictators right across the world, whether that be in Saudi or in Russia.
Africa.
I think, exactly, or in Russia. It puts too much power into the hands of too few. And I think for as long as we are far too dependent on dirty fossil fuels, that also means being dependent on these extremely unsavoury characters. So I appreciate, I'm very broken recordy on these things, but that is why it's important that we move to homegrown, clean, renewable energy, not just because it's cheaper, not just because it's cleaner, but because it gives us that independence from these sort of actors.
Boris Johnson's cleaner than he used to be, isn't he? And then we go to The Guardian for this one, page 11.
Yeah, so obviously, quite rightly, Partygate, etc., has been shifted off the front pages. And for the moment, Boris Johnson appears to be experiencing something of a reprieve from his own MPs, at least, in terms of the plots to oust him. It would not be appropriate, I don't think, really, in anyone's eyes, to be plotting against him right at this particular minute. However, I think it is probably a fallacy to think that this is a permanent shift in public mood around Boris Johnson. So his MPs have rightly prioritised the immediate response to the war, on which I think he is getting some things right. However, if you look at polling on public support for Boris Johnson, actually very little has shifted. So still about 55 to 60%.
So if you're the Met Police, right, and they arrive next week and they knock the door of number 10, they say, hello, Mr. Johnson, here's a summons, for you having a party in your back garden, whatever it is, and you're going to be fined £100 or whatever. Do you not think people, by and large, just go, had your chance, missed it. It's yesterday's news. It's gone. Forget it.
I don't know, because I think when you look at a global context in which leaders like Putin are completely impervious to the law, completely impervious as far as we can tell to public opinion, even in his own country. Now, I appreciate it's a spectrum, but it is a spectrum nonetheless. And I think the only way that the UK can hold our head up high on the political stage is if we do hold our leaders to the same level of accountability that we hold other despots. Now, Partygate is a far cry from obviously what Putin is doing, but I think the legitimacy of law is important in any context.
And aside from Partygate, you chose this article on page 11 of The Guardian. It actually pictures Boris not only with his sister, but with Evgeny Lebedev. And there are lots of questions this weekend over who the Conservative Party or Boris Johnson indeed have been associating with, or indeed giving honours to in relation to the whole issue of Russian money.
And that comes back to the sanctions question. I mean, the UK has lagged behind others on sanctions. So many of those that are announced, the Russian oligarchs who were sanctioned last week, have been sanctioned for 6 years in the US. And I think there are some questions about why the Conservative Party has been so slow historically to act on this. The Economic Crime Bill is not a new piece of legislation. It's been on the books for about 4 years, being bumped back and back. And I think we do have to ask some quite difficult questions about connections, about access, whether it's be Lebedev or others. And I think we are asking for more from our leaders, and I think Boris Johnson gives us in terms of transparency, accountability, and authority.
Nick, putting your diplomatic skills to work here on behalf of Tony Blair, it's very hard for the UK to lecture the rest of the world on invasions and not breaking international law and that sort of thing because of the Iraq and Afghanistan situations and Tony Blair's involvement in all of those. He's been speaking to the Times, page 14.
Speaking not just to the Times, but to the Archbishop of Canterbury, no less, and saying that the decision to invade Iraq may have been wrong, but he thought at the time it was the right thing to do. I flagged this story because obviously invasions have consequences, and it's particularly poignant for me because I was in Baghdad in 2007 when Tony Blair was due to visit us, and actually at the precise time he was due to visit us, a large rocket hit a car park where all of us in the embassy were having, next to where the ambassador and a number of us were having cups of tea, and it is a brutal reminder, really, that if you go in and use violence to assert your will over a foreign power, it has consequences. And one of the consequences in Iraq, of course, was the birth of ISIS as a result of the Sunni insurgency. So the reaction to the invasion of the Ukraine by the international community, I think, has been entirely the right kind of reaction. But it also serves as a reminder of our responsibility to think very carefully before we engage in adventures of that kind.
OK, guys, would love to talk longer, but we're out of time. Amy Cameron and Nick Busvine, thank you both very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
OK, it's that time in the show where we're going to go on your doorstep.
And we go to Scotland. Our Scotland reporter, Davy Donaldson, is in Bo'ness, and that's in West Lothian. Right, Davy, over to you. Whose doorstep are you on?
Thanks, Eamonn. Yes, we're in Bo'ness, Old Kirk, and we're here at the Bo'ness Food Pantry. Joining me is the volunteer Diane McCabe. Diane, you're obviously making up a parcel here that's going to go out. So what have you got so far?
Well, the sort of things we put in it, we try to put fresh food in. Always put milk, bread, eggs, butter, vegetables if we have it, cheese if we have it. We give frozen food as well. We try to give enough food for 7 days, and we include lots of staples like beans, tinned vegetables, pasta sauce, tins of soup, tuna, tinned meat, and if we come round this way...
Keep going. Hang on a second.
Hang
on a second. All right, we'll go round here. Just checking. We'll come round here, that's fine. What else have you got?
We've got tea, coffee, sugar, cooking ingredients. People ask quite a lot for things like cooking oil, salt, ketchup, these sort of things, the staples that people need in their cupboards. Pasta and rice we go through a lot of as well.
So that's good. So we'll just go around this way. Let you pass there, Paul. Obviously there's lots of stuff here. I mean, it doesn't look, I have to say, it doesn't look like there's loads of stuff here at the moment, but presumably there's more stuff coming in all the time.
There's stuff handed in every week, and we get big deliveries as well, but we are really busy at the moment, so some of the stuff goes out, as quick as it comes in.
And how many parcels are you making up at any one time?
A typical week at the moment is we're delivering to about 25 to 30 households. So as you can see there, we have breakfast cereal up there, but that's probably only enough for today's deliveries, but we'll get that topped up again for next week.
And has that been busier? Has it been busier since the turn of the year, and most of the people struggling with the cost of living?
In the summer months, we tend to go quieter, but December, January, February have been very busy.
Excellent. We'll just go and have a look over here as well. Thanks very much, Diane, for that. So we'll have a look over here and speak to Kerry. Kerry, obviously you're involved with this as well, and I see you've got a tin of what in your hand? Tin of vegetable soup. Yep. So we've heard about the different people who's the people that benefit from this?
Oh, anybody, all walks of life. This is a pantry where everybody's included, and we want to help anybody who needs support within the pantry. So you can self-refer on the pantry's website. So it can be people who need something on a weekly basis because ends just don't seem to meet, or people who are having an emergency or a crisis, they've lost their job, their payments aren't coming in, they've been off ill, and those are the type of people that can all get support from the pantry.
How vital is that to these people? What's the feedback from them?
Oh, it's a lifeline, absolutely. And it shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't have this state of play within our country that people are on the breadline every week and they can't make ends meet. It's just an absolute sin, but it's a vital service for the community.
In terms of hours, what's the hours that you've got volunteers here? How often do they work?
They're down here every week, so the pantry is open every Monday. And they're delivering the parcels out. Between 1 and 3 is when we accept the donations, but they're usually here between 1 and 4 o'clock every Monday.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thanks very much indeed, Kerry. Yeah, well, there we go. The food pantry here in Bo'ness, certainly helping a lot of people. Things getting put out today, things getting put out obviously other days as well, and certainly very beneficial to people who are struggling, you know, and everyone is struggling with the rise in heating bills and the general cost of living, fuel expenses. So this certainly is a lifeline, there's no doubt about that.
Aww.
David, good work. Thank you. Great to see.
Yeah. Look, we're going to talk about health matters now because the renowned Australian cricketer Shane Ward, as we know, tragically died from a heart attack on Friday at the age of 52. It's a death that shocked the world, yeah. A really, really young man. And, of course, we know it was a heart attack. He was on holiday in Thailand with some of his friends. And we're going to talk now to a doctor about how best to spot the first signs.
Yeah, Dr.
Joined by Dr. Sarah Kayat, joins us in the studio. Look, we've heard, and the paper's reporting this morning, that Shane was on this really tough juicing diet for 2 weeks. Now, that can put an enormous strain on your heart, can't it?
Absolutely. So, you know, strict diets and low-calorie diets can put a strain on your heart, but often they will put a strain on your heart if you already have an underlying heart condition and you've got other risk factors. But, you know, generally, you do have to be very careful with those types of diets.
People around Shane said this was sort of typical of him. He would put on a lot of weight and he would take off a lot of weight, all in a short space of time.
Well, I mean, being overweight in itself is a risk factor for heart attack. So, you know, it may very well have been at some point that, you know, that increase in cholesterol in his diet and that excess weight could have put the additional strain on him.
I mean, look, when a celebrity, a well-known person dies young, I mean, it's always really sad and really shocking, but it also niggles at people, doesn't it? And it makes them at home thinking, am I living a healthy lifestyle? Could that have been me? And there will be people watching this at home who could make small changes that could increase their life expectancy significantly as a result of this. What changes should people make if they are worried about having a heart attack?
So when it comes to risk factors, there are things that you can't do anything about, things like your family history, your age, you know, previous heart attacks, but there is a huge array of things that you can do things about. So, for example, your diet, leading a healthy, you know, balanced diet, physical activity, trying to do 150 minutes of moderate activity a week, stopping smoking if you're a smoker, you know, drinking within limits for alcohol. And if you have high blood pressure or you have high cholesterol, managing those things with, you know, medications or through those lifestyle measures.
I haven't got much going in my favour, but I've never smoked in my life. And I rarely have ever drink, which I do think when I go in to get tested by the doctor.
Your halo is gleaming.
I sort of think, well, how did I pass that test? You know, and I do think that the smoking thing, the lack of smoking has really gone in my favour. And unlike Isabel, not a bit of alcohol.
Oh, I thought you were going to imply as a smoker. I don't smoke. My mum's watching. Can't suggest such a thing.
Well, smoking is one of the, you know, leading causes of preventable deaths
Yes,
in the
yes.
UK, so you're absolutely right. But you actually mentioned there about going in to see your doctor, and that's another thing you can do. We know that in England, from the age of 40 to 74, we offer a NHS health check. So it's a bit of an MOT, and those
From
are
what age, 40 to 74? Oh, I'll qualify soon.
Well, there we go, yay. And it just means that they pick up on things like diabetes, pick up on blood pressure, cholesterol, all of those
Narrowing
kind of things.
arteries.
Exactly.
Things like that. What I don't understand is, right, so you go and do the juicing thing or the diet. How does that put a strain on your body? You think that's only doing you good and filling you with goodness and the end result will be good?
Well, unfortunately, with the extremely low-calorie diet, you're putting your body in a bit of a fight or flight type of reaction. It's extra stress on your body, your cortisol, so your stress hormones all go up, and all of those things feed back into the muscles of the heart.
My mum had a heart attack, a serious one last year, and then a couple of more minor ones. I mean, heart attack's a heart attack, but she didn't look like a classic candidate, and that can often be the case, can't it? That these can come out of nowhere, even if you don't look like you're going to have one.
Oh, absolutely. So yes, whilst being overweight is one of the risk factors, it's not all of the risk factors. And you're quite right. You can be walking around and not knowing, and that's why it's so important to do these health checks. And actually, it's interestingly with women more so, they're less likely to seek help with regards to heart attacks than men. So more women unfortunately die from heart attacks because they don't know that those signs and symptoms can affect them.
Thanks for pointing this out, Dr. Sarah, and we do that in tribute and in memory of Shane Warne. May he rest in peace. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
We're going to look forward to talking to the Daily Mail's consultant editor, Mr. Andrew Pearce. Always good with his take on what is happening in the news. He'll give it to you straight after 9 o'clock and after your weather.
Well, looking ahead to today's weather, the UK is looking fine and dry for many, with sunny spells, though windier than over the weekend. Let's take a look at the details.
Beginning with the southwest, it should stay dry, and most of us will see some sunny breaks. The brisk winds will make it feel very chilly, though.
Let's move to the southeast, and across London there'll be more sunshine with largely clear blue skies. Chilly here, highs of just 6 or 7 Celsius.
Breezy but dry across Wales, perhaps not as much sunshine as over the weekend. Chillier, especially with the wind.
That's also how it's looking as we head towards the Midlands. A dry morning and afternoon with some decent sunny breaks. Temperatures a little below average, highs of 8 at best.
Cloudier in the northeast of England. There will be some sunshine breaking through. Temperatures will be a little down on average for early spring.
Plenty of sunshine across Scotland this lunchtime. Winds will be mostly light, though out towards the west it'll be quite windy at times, adding to the chilly feel.
Northern Ireland again bathed in sunshine, barely a cloud in the sky, a touch chillier than over the weekend and feeling cold with the brisk wind.
A little change in the weather this afternoon, though thick cloud will push in from the south later, and that is how the weather is shaping up for you on this Monday.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Boris Johnson will meet world leaders today as he hopes to win support for his 6-point plan to defeat Putin.
Wherever you're watching, a very good morning to you. The time just gone 9 o'clock on this Monday, the 7th of March. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
We're live across the world on both your TV, your radio and online. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
The Prime Minister will meet with his Canadian and Dutch counterparts today to try to keep up international pressure on Russia.
Parliament will fast-track the economic crime bill today in order to clamp down on Russian oligarchs. Opponents say this is too little, too late.
Over 1 million refugees crossing into Poland. Our reporter is there for us this morning, Paul Hawken.
Good morning from the Dorhusk border. It is freezing cold. We will be speaking to some of the Ukrainian refugees who are fleeing conflict in their country and heading for Poland and beyond.
And don't forget, you can, as always, join in any of our discussions by emailing us at gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
OK, we were mentioning there the refugee trail is 1 million now. 1 million people, women, children mostly, have now crossed the border into Poland.
Yeah, the United Nations Refugee Agency says this is the fastest growing crisis in Europe since World War II. Let's cross to our national reporter, Paul Hawkins. He's at Poland's border for us this morning. And Paul, you know, Poland's come in for criticism in recent years, perhaps for being unsympathetic to migrants coming from the Middle East, but they have been unbelievably welcoming. The news overnight that 1 million refugees have fled into their country in the last 12 days, and you've been witnessing that firsthand for the last few days.
Yeah, morning Isabel, morning Eamonn. That is exactly what we've been witnessing, just this incredible outpouring, limitless outpouring of humanity, people opening their homes to the Ukrainians, gathering whatever they can, coming to places like this, border crossings, registration centres, just doing whatever they can to help the Ukrainian people who are coming across the border. We now have over 1 million people that have made the crossing, and that is going to go up. The UN says it will rise to 4 million at least, with 12 million internally displaced inside the border as another bus comes through just behind me. So, yeah, a huge outpouring from the Polish people. The problem really at the moment now that we're hearing is not temporary places to stay for the night. It isn't humanitarian aid. It is semi-permanent homes, actual homes where people can stay for a matter of weeks or months, where they can have their own private space. And so we're hearing refugees are having to travel a little bit further now into sort of Western Germany, into as far as Western Germany, in fact, and also onto France to try and get some sort of semi-permanent home set up. So homes are the problem here in Poland at the moment.
OK, Paul, thank you very much. We'll cross back to you throughout the day here on GB News, but stay warm if you can, and we'll see more from you a little bit later on.
Joining us now in studio, Andrew Pearce, to talk about his take on what we're seeing and what has happened and what has developed over the weekend. President Putin, just when you think he can't be more horrible, more ghastly, more hateful, then you just read the papers over the weekend. And
It's the pure evil, isn't it? I don't think he's mad. I think he's evil. He knows exactly what he's doing. To think those people thought they were being given a safe passage and then they were mortar bombed. Appalling. If that is the most overt war crime so far of many we've seen, you can't negotiate with him. I mean, Macron, the French president, spent 2 hours on the phone with him. What's the point? You might as well talk to yourself, because he's a liar. He's a pathological liar. And did you see the video, the footage in Russia of the Russian state media explaining to people how Ukrainians tried to destroy their own nuclear facility. Unbelievable. But they've been force-fed this diet for years and years, and presumably Russian people are believing it.
Yeah, we were talking to Will Geddes, the security analyst, a little bit earlier on, and he was saying that there are these extraordinary stories coming out of Russia as well about people posting information of true facts on TripAdvisor websites and the like, so that people in Russia can hear. But it's a real problem for the Russians because they're seeing their free press clamped down on. We were speaking to journalists in Moscow a few weeks ago. We aren't able to catch up with them anymore. Yeah, exactly.
And of course, if you say it's a war, you're up to 15 years in jail.
Yes.
And what sort of jail will you be in? Will you ever see the light of day again? No, probably people being murdered for daring to protest. But 4,500 people were arrested that we know about over the weekend. So Russian people are beginning to revolt. And what's really interesting, mums of soldiers are beginning to protest. And now, this was very damaging for Russia during the Afghanistan war in the 1980s, when the mums started to complain because they know their kids, they're conscripts, think they're going into a training expedition. They don't know they're going into a war zone, and then they find they're going to have to shoot people they regard as kith and kin.
Andrea, I spent a lot of time in Russia a couple of years ago, and the thing that really surprised me was how westernised these people either were or wanted to be. And their only aim was really to get a Western car. And that had changed. I'd been there 30 years ago filming, and I saw food queues outside stores, and the only cars available on the streets were Russian marques, Russian makes. I had no sense. I just felt like the rest of us, people just want to get on with a modern life. They want to have a job, they want to keep their health. Whatever this doctrine is that Putin is preaching, I just wonder, does it resonate with ordinary Russians?
I'm sure that people, the educated Russians, realise what's going on, but there's still a great class of people who are not very well educated.
Some who don't even have the internet, I was hearing.
Exactly. A lot of people work on the land, and they still think the state provides food. And that's the thing you did very cleverly before. No EU food goes into Russia. Food imports were banned, so they're not going to starve. All the food is produced locally, so nobody's starving. So that makes a big difference to the working class poor.
You see,
very Soviet, that.
Yeah, very un-Soviet. You get people now complaining that they can't get their mini shredded wheat and their Weetabix and things like this.
Gucci handbags.
Yes.
Next to pulling out, IKEA are pulling out, Visa are pulling out, even Netflix. So people are going to start to think, why is all this happening? And then they're going to start to realise, is it really because Ukraine's threatening our security? Of course not. They're going to begin to, and that's where we've got to hope we have another Russian revolution. The one in 1917 brought down the Tsar. This could bring down Putin.
Look, I was just going to talk about the nuclear threat, because over the weekend we saw that nuclear power station that was taken over. Of course, we saw Chernobyl being taken over. There's been more concerns about radioactive energy power stations in the south. And the big concern is whether or not that's being taken to try and keep the fight going in Ukraine, or whether it's being taken for other reasons, whether he wants to start a nuclear war. We can't underestimate this, because he, as you say, he's not rational.
No, he's not. But I think this about Putin, he's a survivor. And if he triggers a nuclear war, he dies. He's the richest man in the world, probably. Probably the richest man in the world.
But he's cornered, isn't he?
Yeah, but he can survive a few more years, probably.
But if he triggers a nuclear war, we all die.
We all die. He knows that. There's a terrible rumour that he's got terminal cancer. You'll have read that on the internet. Now, people say, great, that means he's going to go. Hang on, if he's got terminal cancer, maybe he doesn't give a hoot.
What's he got to live for?
What exactly?
Yeah.
So he could unleash a nuclear holocaust. I don't think it's true about the cancer, but it's part of the rumours out.
Talk to us about this economic sanctions bill that's being sped through Parliament today. There's lots of sort of stuff happening in Westminster. We've also got Justin Trudeau and Mark Rutte in town as well. So, what's Boris Johnson's agenda today?
He's getting a lot of flack because we've not sanctioned as many oligarchs as the European Union. But look, these oligarchs are very clever people. They knew this conflict was looming for months and months and months, so they'd have got their money into a safe place, you can be certain. But what was really significant about what Britain has done, we have frozen Russian assets of around 240 billion. The EU has frozen assets of 33 billion. So we are doing very, very well. We haven't got the headlines of the oligarchs because they've got these clever lawyers, but the significant thing is we're freezing their money. And today in the Commons, there's going to be more tougher measures to stop these very clever lawyers trying to silence the media on behalf of the oligarchs with vexatious claims, because they bombard the media. GBNews will have had the letters. We've had them at the Mail, trying to stop us reporting about these people because they're so powerful and so rich. So the Commons is getting tougher.
Where did I read a report on that there were going to be sanctions taken against lawyers? Was there a country? Was there not? Because this was going to be a crime if you protect.
Oh, that was Bill Browder was talking about it
That's
here.
who it was.
Yeah, he came in
was
last
that going
week.
to be in America? He
was talking to parliamentarians here and in the States about bringing in these laws that would mean if people didn't come forward as whistleblowers, then they could be punished with prison. It hasn't been brought in.
It sounds a really good idea.
But I spoke to a lawyer over the weekend about this, and he said that's actually the law already. That if you have been aiding and abetting these people and hiding money and all this, it's actually already illegal and punishable.
But also,
it's called fraud.
We're not Russia here. People are entitled to legal representation, as unpalatable and as unsavoury as we might think they are.
But I tell you, it's the cynic in me, this bill that's been put through Parliament this afternoon. I mean, initially we were giving them a year to declare their interests. Now it's down to 6 months. The Labour Party wanted to be 28 days, and I think there's a lot of sense in that. And I just look at someone like Abramovich. If he is a person of interest, why are we allowing him to flog his football club for billions, take the money and say, yeah, thanks very much, I know you're after me, but I'm gone, I'm out of here?
I know, I completely agree. It doesn't seem right, does it?
No.
And Abramovich, very rich, very powerful man, very clever lawyers, best lawyers. I think they've tried to... I mean, remember at the beginning of this, Boris named him in the Commons as a person of interest and then had to come back to the Commons and say, I misspoke.
Yeah.
He didn't misspeak. He wanted to name him, but the government lawyers are tying his hands up. We need to get some better lawyers working for the government.
What about this visa issue? Because there's been some claims that people being turned away at Calais over the weekend, and despite all the tens of thousands of people applying for the formal family visas, only 50
we really
being
only allowed
granted.
50? Look, Priti Patel was out there, the Home Secretary in Poland. She saw for herself how shocking it is there. Poland has taken 1 million people. I don't think tens of thousands of Ukrainians want to come to Britain, actually, because we've got a pretty small community here, 40-odd thousand. But we should. But those who are trying to come here to be reunited with their family, they should be here already, I think. And it's too slow, it's too cumbersome, and it's the wretched Home Office, as usual, screwing up.
It's inhumane. You just can't imagine. A lot of these people don't want to stay here. They want to be here. They want to escape here, but then they want to get home.
They want to get back
as soon as possible. And I do think when we look at Paul Hawkins, when we see these pictures coming in from the Poland borders or the Romanian border, as in this case. You think these people have suffered enough, they've been through enough. What was somebody standing there with a clipboard saying, yes, now go and fill in this form, apply in 7 days' time, whatever it is, just take them.
And when you saw the harrowing sight of that mum and dad with the little child, 18 months old, that died, you'd have to have the flintiest heart not to.
As a journalist, I've spent a lot of time in the last 12 days or so just hugely emotional. And I think the British public feel the same. And I wonder if the Home Office is out of touch with the public mood, because they've been not burnt, but they've seen public mood on Brexit, on perhaps some previous crises. But this is different.
We've got a shambolic migration system, and a shambolic asylum system, and I think we've let far too many people in, and we're a very squeezed country. But this is a humanitarian crisis happening in Europe, 2 hours from where we live. You could get an EasyJet flight to Ukraine. That's how accessible it is. That's why this really, really has struck a chord with people watching your programme, reading my newspaper. People want us to do something.
We had a guy in 20 minutes ago who basically is 25 years of age. He spent £2,500 on a school bus. He's fitted it out, rekitting it. He's bringing NHS staff and supplies and blankets and bandages and goodness knows what. He wants to get to Ukraine. He wants to bring it to those people on the border. And then what does he want to do, Isabel?
He wants to rescue 200 orphans from Kyiv and then bring them out.
Heroic.
It's
heroic.
Just incredible.
Yeah,
just
extraordinary bravery, and there's so much of it. And hundreds, thousands of people volunteering to go and fight in Ukraine. That wonderful story about the 72-year-old ex-army officer who's on his way from Britain to Ukraine to fight. It's extraordinary.
And Andrew, your newspaper has done a fantastic appeal.
And £4 million already.
Unbelievable.
That's our readers. And I've seen some of the letters, the cheques. It's pensioners sending in £5 notes, which they can barely afford. They are so moved by it. And of course, it echoes of the Blitz, all that. It's an extraordinary... Britain really wants us to do a lot better by these refugees, and I think by the end of the week we'll have got it right.
We'll have got it right. Could I talk about Shane Ward?
He came into can I tell you, he came into my newsroom when I was on the Times 20 years ago. Now, all sorts of famous people go into newsroom. You look up, can't be bothered. J. Corona, who cares? Shane Warne walked in, the whole room stopped. It was extraordinary. It was like a rock star. And who was the one person he came to talk to? Me. What do I know about cricket? But even I knew he was Shane Warne, and he was so engaging. incredible. What a shame. Tragic.
It's so sad. Yeah,
I was
it's
watching
no age.
Sky running a documentary on him, and again, I'm not a huge cricket follower or whatever, but you realise that there are some people who transcend their sport and they've got a charisma.
He was one.
And, you know, there he was engaged to Liz Hurley for 2 years as well with that. And we've got, you know, people just seem to speak very well of him, which is
he was incredible. And then he went out and had a fag. Which I thought was astonishing. This incredible international sportsman. I think he was coming in to sort out a column for the Times. He went out and had a fag, and he posed for endless photographs.
He lived life to the full, didn't he? Everyone seemed to have a story about partying with him or having a good time.
You sort of felt somehow he was never going to make an old man.
Yeah.
Somehow. It's up to the George Best about him in a sense, you know. Genius on the pitch. Lived life to the full off the pitch.
Flawed genius.
Yeah. A great loss. And a state funeral.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
lovely.
incredible. And on that subject, the Manchester derby yesterday, what did you think?
I know who won. And I know Manchester, because Manchester City won 4-1. Are you a Manchester United fan? I don't know who you support, Eamonn. Forgive me.
It's so annoying, isn't it?
I don't know.
You're surrounded by it.
I don't do football.
Neither do I, Andrew. Poor Eamonn.
Do you know how my team got on Saturday?
Who's your team?
Swindon Town, of course. They're mighty. Swindon. They beat Blackpool away from home. They're now in 7th place in Division 2, which is the lowest division.
Do you get joy?
I do. I still look for their result every Saturday. As a kid, I used to go every Saturday to watch them when they were at home.
But why? I thought you were London-based.
My family moved out after the war in the 50s.
To Dagenham, was it?
But they moved out of Dagenham to Swindon, and they moved into a new council estate was built. My mum was the first person in that house, and that's the one she left when she was 59 years later when she died.
That is incredible. The reason I ask you about Swindon as your, you know, your hobby, your interest, whatever, I just think everybody. We've had the pandemic. We've had, you know, this war coming along. We've had everything. Commercial crash around the world.
Cost of living crisis.
Just people have got nothing to look forward to, and it's very, very difficult to find any sort of escape or, you know, something that you can indulge in that makes you smile without you feeling guilty.
Yeah, well, even football isn't free of that anymore with all the connections.
Well,
to Russia,
and actually, why did we ever let that terrible man buy Chelsea? Because he just turned it into
the team
money
around.
race, didn't it? Yeah, but it turned into an arms race in money,
Well,
didn't
what
it?
was worse was they played Burnley on Saturday, and when there was a section about praise for Ukraine,
and they
this lot
cheering
started chanting his name. But that is
morons.
But you know, that is football. For you were winning, they forgive sex offenders, they forgive all sorts of things because it's about
all they want to do is win. To hell with the sportsmanship side of it. It's really sad. Who is your team, by the way?
United.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's only one United.
Well. Oh, right.
That's it. Yeah.
You're going to get a new manager again at the end of the year, I
It looks like it.
Did you watch it? Was it that bad?
What do you mean, did I watch it?
Did you not? Did Reese not switch it off and put you out of your misery?
Oddly enough, I wasn't with her. No.
She could have been with me. We could have been together. Terry, next time you're watching, I'll
could do that.
We'll go and have a glass
Pop
of wine.
round.
You could pop round too.
Oh,
Isabel.
perfect. That
Three
sounds
of us.
lovely.
Always great to talk to you,
Lovely
get your
to see
views
you.
and things.
Yeah.
Thanks very much again for
Thank
even
you.
in all this darkness, giving us a little smile. Thank you very much indeed.
OK, it's 9:18. Let's bring you up to date with all the latest headlines. And the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has arrived in London ahead of his meeting today with Boris Johnson at Downing Street. Mr Johnson's beginning a week of diplomatic talks with foreign leaders to build a united front against Vladimir Putin.
The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, said that over 10,000 people have applied for the UK's Ukraine Family Scheme since it was launched on Friday. So far, though, only around 50 visas have been granted by the Home Office as of yesterday morning.
Labour says the government's giving Russian oligarchs too long to register their UK properties under new rules, saying the time limit should be moved from 6 months to 28 days. The government's economic crime bill, which partly aims to tackle Russian money in the UK, is due to be debated by MPs in Parliament today.
Denmark will hold a referendum in June on whether to join the European Union's Defence Pact. The Danes have opted out of the bloc's common security and defence policies for the last 30 years, but Russia's invasion of Ukraine has prompted a rethink.
In other news, around 43% of girls who considered themselves sporty lost interest after primary school, according to a new report. Charity Women in Sport surveyed over 4,000 teenagers and found that a fear of feeling judged or disliked at being watched were just some of the reasons preventing them from taking part.
Strength of the UK's labour market has recovered to pre-pandemic levels for the first time. That's according to new research from business advisory firm BDO. The firm's monthly employment index shows a reading above the 95-point level, indicating significant growth since February 2020.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to be celebrating National Butchers Week. We'll be talking
Do you think you could chop a chop? Do you think you could cut a chop?
I could definitely chop a chop.
Okay.
We're going to be talking to a female owner of her family's 108-year-old business. That's after the break. Don't go anywhere.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Now, our Northeast reporter, Rachel Sweeney, has just tweeted, and this is good because then we can know what's coming up on the programme. She's doing this, and she's got a lovely picture. She's got a lovely, lovely picture of a lovely butcher. And this butcher is the only woman for the job. Her name's Catherine from Nicholson's, who is going to be live. She's doing this with us at 9:20, and it is now 9:23, so we better get a move on. Right, so
there
it is.
She is.
What is it? National Butchers Week. Hello. Very good to see you, Catherine.
Hi there.
What's your speciality? Is it sausages?
Yeah, and everything else you'd expect in a butcher shop.
No, but you must have something that you're particularly proud of. Do you do pies, or your sausages better than everyone else's, or what? What do you pride yourself on?
Using as much local produce as we can. We pride ourselves on buying from local farms.
Catherine, I've been to many butchers in my time. I do love to support my local butcher. I've never come across a female butcher before. I'm sure you get asked about this a lot, but you're from a long line of butchers. You're the mother of 2 little girls. Do you hope your daughters might follow in your footsteps, and what's it like in a man's world of butchery?
I'd absolutely love them to follow in my footsteps. It's a great world to work in. It's exciting. It's challenging. It brings a new challenge every single day.
Remember when I was a kid and you go into the butcher shops and they always had wooden tables, and the wooden table was completely uneven, and I think it was due to scrubbing, the way they had to scrub.
I think I can see one just behind Catherine. If we go onto a single of Catherine.
I was just wondering, since you've
there
been...
Is one. There it is, just behind her.
And you scrub that down. I mean, your family butchers has been going 100 years. I mean, that's a big responsibility, isn't it, to keep it going and not to accede to supermarkets, for instance?
It's a huge responsibility. I definitely feel it on my shoulders. But I just think, you know, you follow on the footsteps of what my family have done, and hopefully we'll keep going for another 100.
For butchers, though, at the moment, is it not only being price cut by the supermarkets, but also, you know, for perhaps good reasons, lots of people more conscious about eating meat. Is that affecting business, or is it still doing well for you?
Actually, that's been quite a positive thing for us. I think as people have reduced their meat consumption, they've bought less, but they've bought good. So they've come to us to get the best instead of buying them from supermarkets. So it's been beneficial to us. We can tell the story from start to finish of what the animals have been fed on, where they've been reared. You know, we definitely can highlight from farm to fork.
Farm to feast, even. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Do you know, when I think back talking to you, my father used to go out on a Saturday and it was a butcher fest. He used to buy all this stuff. We used to get pig's feet, which would be like a snack. We would have those wrapped up in grease-proof paper. There would be tripe. There would be a cow's heart. There would be then all the offal that you would get, you know, the kidneys.
Sounds a real treat. I mean, I love a butcher's, don't get me wrong, I love a butcher's, but you're not selling the best bits. I like a nice fillet.
You've done a bit of butchery, haven't you?
I don't want to talk about it.
No, you don't want to talk about it. All right, we don't want to talk about it.
That sounds weird.
Yeah, well, actually, Catherine, good luck with you. Natural Butchers Week. It's amazing to hear about you as a woman and your daughters and Nicholson's as well. So, really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't forget to support your local butcher. It's really important. We'll miss them when they're gone.
Unless you're a vegetarian.
Oh, well, yeah. OK, unless you're a vegetarian, yeah. Good point. OK, look, we've got to go. It's time to go on that note. Thanks for joining us this Monday morning. We'll be back tomorrow from 6. Tom Harwood is up with the briefing next. Have a good day. Well, looking ahead to today's weather, the UK is looking fine and dry for many, with sunny spells, though windier than over the weekend. Let's take a look at the details.
Beginning with the southwest, it should stay dry, and most of us will see some sunny breaks. The brisk winds will make it feel very chilly, though.
Let's move to the southeast, and across London there'll be more sunshine with largely clear blue skies. Chilly here, highs are just 6 or 7 Celsius.
Breezy but dry across Wales, perhaps not as much sunshine as over the weekend. Chillier, especially with the wind.
That's also how it's looking as we head towards the Midlands. A dry morning and afternoon with some decent sunny breaks. Temperatures a little below average, highs of 8 at best.
Cloudier in the northeast of England. There will be some sunshine breaking through. Temperatures will be a little down on average for early spring.
Plenty of sunshine across Scotland this lunchtime. Winds will be mostly light, though out towards the west it'll be quite windy at times, adding to the chilly feel.
Northern Ireland again bathed in sunshine, barely a cloud in the sky, a touch chillier than over the weekend and feeling cold with the brisk wind.
A little change in the weather this afternoon, though thick cloud will push in from the south later, and that is how the weather is shaping up for you on this Monday.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation?